Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And today are we going to show some love to the rhythm section. I got the one and only Bill the Buddha Dickens with us, one of the just legendary bass players in every sort of category. And he's just a lovely guy. We had the opportunity to talk for quite a while the other night, and gentle, sweet human being. So I'm really looking forward to this. I want to thank our mutual friend, Donald Barrett. Thank you, my brother, for hooking us up, man. Another awesome drummer that Bill influenced. Donald's from Chicago, Bill's from Chicago, so Bill was a mentor to Donald. So thanks, Donald. All right, thumbnail sketch of Bill, in-demand touring and session bassist, producer, and recording artist who's been playing professionally for over 50 years. It's very hard to envision because he looks like he's about 35. You could hear him on recordings with Leo Nocentelli, Buddy Guy, Magic Slim, George Michaels, and Mary J. Blige, Janet Jackson, CNC Music Factory, Victor Wooten, RAMSEY LEWIS, on which Bill played and co-wrote and co-produced 4 albums with RAMSEY. He's produced or written with Common. That guy, I love his whole vibe. He's like, just seems like, you know, you see him on TV, he's just like,
oh yeah, I mean, being on we're on this record. It was the 20th anniversary album for dance music. So Kanye West was on there, Common was on there, of course, myself, and it was all the top DJs that from Chicago, and so I was really fortunate to be a part of that.
That's very cool. And your humility, man, is very, very cool as well. Even when I was talking to you the other night, I was like, anyway, we'll get into that. He's also produced or written for James Brown, Bootsy Collins. I saw Bootsy at NAMM.
Yeah.
And this is really funny. He, you know, obviously he's a super big, tall guy. And he had 2 women behind him and they were feeding him. It's like some shit out of a movie, right? They were like just like taking care of their man, just feeding him.
Like, he's the pit bull, man.
He is.
He's got to be fed, man.
The OG. Yeah. Brian Culbertson, Aretha Franklin. He worked on her comeback album, A Rose Is Still a Rose. They got 2 Grammy nominations and loads of others. He's toured with artists including Al Di Meola, who was on our show a while back, RAMSEY LEWIS, Bernie Worrell, again, Bootsy Collins, Chaka Khan, Chet Baker. I'm going to ask you about that because that's interesting. Chuck Mangione. Pretty much each one of the Neville brothers and all their solo projects, the great Dennis Chambers, Dr. John, Freddie Hubbard, incredible trumpet player, George Clinton, George Porter, again, Bernie, I said Bernie Well, sorry, Jaco Pastorius, Joe Zawinul, Johnny Mathis, Larry Coryell, Mark Farner, who was on here from Grand Funk, Maurice White from Earth, Wind and Fire, Pat Metheny, Questlove, Stevie Wonder, Stanley Turrentine, Steve Morse, that's an interesting one, the Hooters, and dozens of others. Now here's, like, Bill's known for this, but he's like an overall awesome bassist. He's known for, he plays an extended scale 7-string bass. He also designed and invented the 9-string bass because, of course, 7 strings is just not challenging enough. Right. And he developed the lowest playable note on the bass. He has a great solo record called The Truth, THA Truth. He has put on master classes and clinics literally all over the world. And if you don't know Bill, I'd really encourage you to check him out. It's not likely you're going to ever see or hear someone play bass with so much diversity and really unique talents. And at the same time, the level of intensity is like 110, man. All the time, he's like, give. And he also stars in a movie called I'm Your Keeper, playing himself. So that's good because it's hard enough to be yourself, man. To try to be someone else has got to be impossible.
Oh man, you know, just you know, like how we're talking and you know, just in general, it's easy just to talk to you, but like when you're acting, and basically the director wants you to act yourself, and you got cameras all around you, and you have people looking at you, and you know, and then you gotta face the actor or the other actor you're acting with, and you have to ignore everything, and just like how we're talking, and it's hard, and you got to remember the parts. I mean, I had 90% of the movie.
Wow,
I mean,
that's
a speaking role. You know, it was something I never had done in my life. And
how did that come about? Like,
well, it came about because the director it was signed to Lionsgate, and he had put out his first movie, and he had some of the whinings. He had the all-star lineup in the first movie he did. And what happened after the first movie, I guess, I want, I'll try to be very clear, because I'm, some things I may answer, it may not be exactly, but from what I gather is that he approached the pastor of my church about doing a project, a movie, about him. And he was for it, you know what I mean? He never acted before. And so since, I'm kind of like the iconic, person at the church, I've been there for 21 years when I'm not touring. And so what happened, how I ended up getting that is when I got signed to Rope-A-Dope, and I needed to do a video for one of the records, on the album. I asked him if he was interested, it's called Stop the Violence. And so I did a remix on it, and I actually had samples of gang members from California talking about, how rough it was, and, talking, about, not getting in gangs, and, not, making a lifestyle of it. And I had a little 12-year-old that was praying that, I said, oh, I'm gonna grab that, so the director decided that, okay, well, I'll do a video. So we shot the video, and it turned out so great, and he loved my mannerisms. I didn't really say much, but he just loved the way I look, because I can be this very nice guy, or I can go extremely the other way and look like a very hard,
Yeah. I find that hard to not hard to believe, but I would hard to, now that I know you a little bit, it would be hard to,
yeah, I mean,
flip the switch and like look at you a different way. But
switch of environments, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing is, so, is that, because I was part of the whole hip hop culture, you kind of just adapt to those kind of things when you're around people. It's not that you mean to be what they call hardcore or anything like that. It's just kind of like, it's just like, that's what it is when you're in the room with rap artists and that sort of thing, and speaking the language, and being able to relate to them. And that's another thing that he liked about me, is how I reacted with the kids and stuff like that. And so what happened was, make a long story short, we did the video. We haven't released the video yet. I didn't want to release it until the movie came out.
Okay.
And so what happened was, he was having kind of some thoughts about, direction in the movie and that sort of thing. We, basically were just kind of tossing things around. I was going to be in the movie, but it was going to be like a cameo appearance. And so what happened, I called a mutual friend of mine who works with Tyler Perry,
okay,
named Ronnie Garrett. Another fabulous bass player, has one of the most beautiful falsetto voices you would ever hear. Phenomenal singer. He worked with what is his name? Daryl. I can't think of his name, from the LA Babyface camp. And Daryl Simmons. Okay. And so actually, Ronnie played bass on the song that I wrote for Aretha Franklin.
Oh, okay.
And Daryl produced it, because Clyde Davis is the one that placed it on the album himself.
All right.
So what happened, I called Ronnie, and I put Joe Capity, the director, on the phone with him. And he basically told him that, he was trying to write this sort of kind of movie for churchgoers. And he said, well, he just ran down to him what the do's and don'ts are that, doing something like that. You have to have content, that attracts the people outside of church as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So after he ran everything down, I guess it was about a month or so later, he had given me the script. Basically said, I want you to read this script. I said, okay. I didn't know why, he gave this to me. It took me about a month or so to actually read it. He kept, asking me if I had read it, and I said, no, I haven't. And so finally I got around to it, and I read it, and I'm like, what are all these speaking roles he got me? I mean, I'm just supposed to make a cameo appearance. I'm actually near the end of the movie, from almost the beginning, mid part of the movie to the very end. So I called him back and I said, man, I don't know how to act, man. He said, no, you're already acting. You don't need to go to school. You're just naturally like that. And I love the way you act. And I said, but what about these speaking roles? He said, it ain't gonna be no problem. Just be yourself. I just want you to be you. So, so here I am in the movie with Maui Music, who's now a Grammy winner. Jonathan McReynolds, who did a song with Maui Music, who's now a Grammy winner. And I'm nervous to play myself.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
So, and it wasn't just the thing that he was just filming me just from a script, writing a script that had me involved with it. But I mean, some of the scenes, there was one scene was I literally thrown across the room.
You were thrown across the room.
Yeah. Thrown across the room by a gang, like a gangbanger kind of thing, And we had to redo that part like 2 or 3 times, and I have a bad back,
Oh yeah, man, that's not a good deal.
Yeah, so it was a lot of parts where I was so involved in it that it seemed like that it was, at times I was just overwhelmed, But the great thing about it, he wanted me to play my 7-string in different scenes in the movie. So not with a band, but by myself. And he wanted me to play everything, the crazy stuff I play, the chordal stuff I play, whatever he wanted that in the movie. And so, I thought about that. I said, I'll be the first bass player probably in history on a serious movie that has gotten a chance to play a bass like that in scenes where, you know what I mean?
Yeah, to stretch out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's one scene that's like 30 or 40 preachers in this scene with the church is full and we have the choir, and here I am playing, losing my mind, and they're going crazy. I'm like, who gets a chance to do something like that? It doesn't exist. So anyway, but that's how it came about, how I got into the movie. He just rewrote the script because of me, introducing him to Ronnie Garrett, and the rest was history. That was it.
Is it out? When is the movie coming out? Because
that's a good question, because I mean, I think because he does so much work in film, he has he's doing it in a different way, and I really don't want to put anything out there, but he's been editing it like bit by bit. So I decided to help him out with the scoring part of the movie, and Maui's going to score the movie, but I said, maybe I need to give him some inspiration, because there was really no real music per se. So I went on and did some parts, and and then so he said, listen, man, let me finish editing the movie, and then I'll know where to go from there. So I don't have a date yet for the movie, but I will let you know as soon as it's close to being finished.
So follow Bill Dickens on his socials, because I'm pretty confident once there's a date, he'll be on his socials. It's called I'm Your Keeper. That's awesome, man. I look forward to seeing that. That'd be very cool.
Yep, absolutely.
That'd be really cool, because it's like, for me, it's cool. Like if I'm driving in the car and music comes on and I've had that artist on my show, it's like, wow, it's weird.
Oh, yeah.
But now to watch someone in a movie that I know would be really cool too.
Right.
All right, let's get into you. You're interested in music, and you started playing instruments at a very young age. You were 3 years old, and your parents were really supportive. They bought you drums, then bass, and then piano. And I was curious, did you come from a musical family? Because that's a really young age to get that kind of support.
Yeah, it was really all my mother. Even though my dad loved listening to mainly like Nat King Cole, of course, and he was a brilliant piano player as well, but he more so for the vocals, my mother was already playing guitar, you know, and I was just a young little baby, you know. Her and my sister were taking guitar lessons.
Just to like for the fun of it.
Yeah, but I mean, they had to learn how to read. I mean, especially, you know, mom, you know, and it's funny. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. That's kind of like, for back then, pretty progressive that a woman's just studying guitar.
Any woman, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right.
It didn't exist.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't find out, you know, till God, decades later, there were actual women that were playing back in the 40s, you know, and then they had there's a video of an all-woman jazz band from the 40s.
That's cool.
All women, you know what I mean?
Unheard
so
of
I didn't know
then.
all that exists. So you had some blues guitar, female guitar players, and as well as great jazz guitar players that were women, you know, which looked very strange.
Yeah.
You know, to see that because it was so male driven, you know, back then.
It must have been rough for them. I can only imagine. For the women.
Absolutely. And you know, it's just so funny because, you know, you think about what were they playing back there? Well, everybody was playing box guitars.
Right.
And I don't think that, you know, they didn't have, I don't know if they had amplifier. I don't even know if those were around. They all had microphones. Everybody had, bass player had a microphone. I think the guitar player had a microphone, you know. So it was like weird to see that, you know. And it was really interesting later on in life to know that my mother pretty much, she had my direction as far as what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And she was also going to the Regal Theater, which is a popular theater back in the 60s. She was going there just about every week. And so you had James Brown, Jackie Wilson, all live shows. You had about 10 acts on one show and a horrible movie for intermission. A sucky movie, I mean, you know what I mean? And
talk about getting your money's worth though. 10 bands and a movie.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, man. Because, you know, I'll have to say it, and you know, R&B never got the just due of the support of, you know, like pop music.
Yes.
So in the 90s, I wouldn't even call it R&B. I called it hip hop, because hip hop was basically kind of homegrown, independent. You know how it started in the Bronx. You know, and on a basketball court, somebody brought a Shure PA out. You know, and they brought a couple of turntables out, and basically, you know, the DJ was basically rapping over the tracks. You know, and this kind of just came out of thin air. So hip hop sort of created itself independently, whereas we had to kind of what I won't say we, but those people back in the 60s, especially, you know, Jackie Wilson, you know, who's the other guy that I'm thinking of that invented rock and roll? Little Richard, and the other guy that played guitar,
Chuck Berry.
You know, they kind of they were kind of part of a sort of an all working machine, and that machine kind of just took over what they created and made it something else. And so I never thought that in R&B music that people got the support they needed. And so it's funny, but nowadays it's kind of gone back to that same thing where it's several acts on one show.
Well, that's the only way they make money now, man.
Yeah, that's the only way you can draw people.
Yeah, you know, charge a big ticket price. People don't mind paying it to see 5, 6, 7, 10 bands.
And you don't have independent promoters anymore, and you don't have the sponsorship. That's the biggest part.
Yes.
You know, and the other thing is that you also have Live Nation that's bought up most of the vineyards. You know, and they've run it. So what happened, I think, over the last 5 years, they have a R&B sort of so it's like you have the rock category, you have smooth jazz or what have you, but they recently, I think they set up something at Live Nation for R&B.
Okay.
I don't know what the extent of that is,
Yeah.
but I still see old artists that were platinum selling artists, even from the 90s, are going out, but you got like 6 or 7 acts on one show.
Right.
And what happened is that, you know, in the 90s, when we were seeing hip hop, you know, rising to the top, you could go see a 3-4 hour show of like 2 or 3 artists. But now you see several artists, and those artists will only perform 15, 20 minutes.
That's it.
30.
I didn't realize the shows are that long.
Yeah.
That short, rather.
Yeah.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so unfortunate. But it's the only way they can survive out here. They don't have deals anymore. They don't have radio. The good thing is they can get distribution.
Right.
But even though if they get distribution, the artist has to bring their own staff in, because you don't have independent promoters. You know, A&R doesn't exist anymore for most labels. It's all data based.
Right.
You know?
Based on social media. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Unless it's indie, you know, stuff, you know, and actually Jim could tell you a lot more about it.
Hey, I want to get back to you, man. Your mom, talk about, sorry, I want to focus on you, man, because I know you don't like to talk about yourself a lot, because I've noticed it when we're talking, but this is about you, man. And I'm interested in you, and I know people listening are.
Yeah.
So your mom was really the driving force of your music.
Oh yeah,
basically.
absolutely. I mean, you know, she refused for me to learn how to play by ear, because she felt that I wouldn't be able to survive, and also I think that her thing is that she had to take lessons, and she had already kind of learned how to read on the guitar. And, you know, so any instrument that I became interested in, she said, you can't learn how to play that instrument unless you learn how to read.
Wow,
which is backwards.
But it's not, you never hear that. When is, I've had 850 guests on this show. No one's ever said my mom knew that I had to get read.
No, it's backwards.
You know, it's just like, I mean, you know,
it's backwards, because, you know, most of the kids in the neighborhood play by ear. Nobody read.
Right.
Well, they didn't even know what notes were.
Correct.
You know? So for me, I mean, you know, I had a drum teacher, had a bass teacher, piano teacher, and later on I had woodwinds. So everything had to be, you know, everything that was put in front of me had to be, you know, notated. You know, so that's all I ever knew. But the thing about it, when I would go out and jam with my friends, I'm bringing the book. Like if we play like something from the Jackson 5 or something like that,
sure,
I'll bring the book, and the book was written incorrectly. The music, the notation of the bass was wrong, because nobody could figure out what James Jamerson was doing. There was no such thing as ghost notes.
Yes.
Or the playing with the hook with one finger and dragging his finger across 4 strings and having 4 different notes, just dragging his finger. You know, most of us do that for an effect, you know? Or if you play guitar and you kind of rake across the strings, you're just raking.
Yeah.
He's actually playing actual notes and raking across the strings.
So there was none of that. So you had to wound up doing everything by ear anyway.
Yeah. So right. So you know, 70% of what was written was not correct. You know. But so my mom was always on my dad's case. So my dad had an account with Sears and Roebuck, and so basically handed the credit card over to my mom and said, you know, get our son what he needs. So, you know, several different drum sets that got torn up and trashed because I'm young and stupid, don't know nothing about, you know, how do you replace a head, or, you know, how do you tune it? I didn't know nothing about that. Basses, I had Sears and Roebuck basses. I had Ampeg B12 was my first amp as a kid.
Right.
So you can imagine as a little kid, I can't reach the neck, you know, and let alone, I didn't know how to adjust the amp to get a tone. I'm only a, you know, little child, man. And so thank God for all of the great musicians in my neighborhood, Evanston, Illinois. There was a band on almost every block that would be rehearsing. And of course, you know, by that time I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and my friends and I would go to different houses and listen to these bands play. We were just like, you know, they'd be in the basement and we just would like put our ears up to the window, and, you know, and just listen to these bands rehearse. So I was able to figure out tone from listening to other bass players, you know, older guys. But my mom was very upfront, extremely upfront with me in terms of being a musical, all-around musician at such a very young age. So I was exposed to everything. Just seeing James Brown, Stevie Wonder, the Motown Review, Jackie Wilson, many, many, many other groups, and seeing these bands at that time affected me so early on that I kind of, you know, kind of knew what I wanted to do as far as musically, and I started making up stuff. That was the crazy thing. So, you know, I'm making up stuff, and I don't even know I'm writing. I'm just making stuff up, you know. So, you know, being a part of that whole generation of you know, musicians, as well as just being exposed at you know, at that young of an age, um, it opened the door for me to be a musician a professional musician at an extremely young age, you know.
You were writing songs, you just alluded to that, also at a young age, and you were even on the staff of a local record label paying you $200 a week.
Yeah,
$200 a week when you're in high school.
that's right.
So a few questions on that. How did you get so proficient at writing as a kid? That's like totally unusual, like
I think
highly.
well, you know, when you grow up in an urban neighborhood, and you kind of like, you see the darker side of an urban neighborhood, but then you hang around with a lot of white musicians, and then you see how crazy they are. You know, so it was, both sides was crazy, you know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it had to do with that, you know, I had the support of my parents, but I didn't have the support of them as them being responsible for raising me. A lot of it was based off of like kind of like trial and error, you know, and thank God there were people around that inspired me and helped me to make sense of what a song was and how to construct it. So what happened was a lot of the situations I went through as a kid, uh, since I didn't have any therapy, you know, any kind of psychological help or anything like that, or had any support, a lot of times I just, you know, I would just write things down. And this one guy that I knew um, told me, said, you know what you should do is like, whatever you go through something, write it down and put it in a garbage bag or put it in some kind of bag. So when you are lost for ideas, reach in the bag, pull whatever out, you know, that you wrote, and see if that'll inspire you to write a song. And it worked. And come to find out, you know, many years later, kind of that was the whole thing with Paul McCartney and John Lennon. You know, they had a whole bunch of ideas in a bag and they would just pull it out. But for me, when I pull out something out of a bag, it'd be extremely emotional. Most people would say, you went through that? I said, I can't even believe I went through something like that, but I wrote it down. So when I finally started learning how to write as a song lyricist, I was able to just construct, songs that basically were about my personal life and how I was growing up, in an environment that, you know, uh, was pretty hard to deal with. So,
to whatever extent you're comfortable, Bill, can you
yeah.
share something, like one or two things, maybe? Again, just to whatever extent you're comfortable.
Well, for instance, a lot of musicians were great musicians, but you had this whole thing of like some of the parents were alcoholics.
Right.
Some of the parents were dealing with depression. You didn't know you couldn't explain it at that time because it's just kind of like, it's sort of like a part of the environment. You hear somebody arguing, or you see the police come out, and you see people screaming and hollering and stuff around the neighborhood. And you just kind of as a child, you just kind of just look, and and then when it happens in your own house, you don't know what to make of that. You just kind of.
Yeah, you're just trying to get through the day.
Yeah. I mean, even more so, you just try to survive not having support of your parents being there for you a lot of times, because there was a lot of times where I was just by myself. And so, of course, you have an imagination, and sometimes your imagination can run away, so that's why my mom got me. I think that's why she got me into music, because she had her problems. And because she had her problems, she didn't want me to face or go through the problems that she was going through. So that's why she exposed me to music. And she loved music because music basically healed her, And so I think that's why I'm the musician I am today, because when my friends were outside playing, I'm practicing, or if you want to call it that, or working on what have you. And even with the writing, the whole writing, I didn't realize I could write at all. I just was writing because it was a way to get my frustration out, and and it was a way for me to see on paper what I exactly was going through. And that's a very young age. I'm 13, 14 years old. So
it's too much. It's way too heavy for a 13-year-old. Yeah.
Way too heavy. It's extremely hard when you come up that way, and then you have to kind of mold yourself. I didn't have a lot of support of the neighborhood, because everything was so dysfunctional.
Right.
And so a lot of it was kind of like just I overly practiced my instruments to the point that I got pretty much a lot of negativity from other musicians, because I could play so well that it made them sound bad. That's the best way I can put it. You know what I mean?
Well, they were jealous. Bottom line.
Yeah. But
of this little kid who's coming in there and smoking.
So I didn't. Nobody told me anything. You know what I mean? So from a young age, it was like all this was being instilled in me. It's like, how do you deal with that? And it was hard, but for me, learning how to read was my ticket out of there.
Yeah.
And learning how to be a songwriter also helped me to get my emotions out. So by the time I was 16, I was writing songs on the piano, and the great thing is I had a singer who was going to Northwestern University named Kyle Boynton, and his voice, he sounded exactly like People Bryson. So, to have somebody demo your stuff that could sing that well, you can't lose, man. I didn't think I could write. I just writing, and he would sing the songs as, you know, I was singing to him the best I could. And he would sing it back to me, would be like, wow, that sounds amazing. So what ended up happening is that there was a group called North, South, East, and West, and they were looking for material. And Lucky Cordell, who was a radio programmer of one of the bigger stations, it was BMX at the time in Chicago, was basically kind of like the Barry Gordy of the production company. Okay. And Maurice Commander was their producer of the company. So Bobby Robinson, who was a guitar player,
is his last name really Commander? Maurice Commander. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And Bobby Robinson was a guy that pulled me in to do like, I don't guess it was a showcase or something for them. And so we were rehearsing over some stuff. And from what I remember, I think it was their because it was all, I think it was all brothers and sisters of that group. Their mother asked if I could write. I said, yeah, I write, you know, but I don't know if you're gonna like it, but I'll give you a cassette. And of course I had Kyle Boyington singing, who's phenomenal, and I'm playing piano, and the first song was called Just Friends. And I gave her a cassette and forgot about it. I just, because I've been around so much negativity, I felt like, okay, well, she's probably gonna say something.
This is just another one. Yeah.
You know,
dude,
what I mean?
I get it. Everything, I had a very similar background, so I'm like, this is interesting.
Yeah. So of course I get this I'm trying to remember what happened. We had another rehearsal. I believe the mother was there. Now I'm trying to remember all this because it's, so long ago. And she came to me and basically said they flipped over my song. The group, the producer, everybody. They said, this is a smash hit. I said, what's a smash hit? You got a hit record. I said, oh, okay. So they said, we're gonna sign you to a writer's deal and put you on a salary. So what do you mean? They said, oh, you don't understand. We are going to sign you as a staff writer. I'm only 16. I don't know what that is.
Right, of course.
So I get the contract, and of course, I mean, I don't know what tier 2 and this and all lawyers blame. I'm like, this looks so weird, but I went on and I signed it. I didn't know I was signing my publishing away. I didn't know none of that stuff. So they asked me to, after I signed the deal, they went on and started putting the song together, and they did the session. So they asked me to come to the recording session. I'm only a teenager. So we were at CRC, which is like, one of the big, huge studios in Chicago. And so I walk into the session. There's Maurice Commander. There's the engineer. And all of a sudden these musicians came in. So I don't know who these musicians are.
They were like local Chicago sidemen?
Some of them were session musicians for Curtin.
Wow, okay.
Curtis Mayfield's label.
Yeah.
And others, yeah. I mean, there was the drummer was a drummer for RAMSEY LEWIS. His name was Steve Cobb. And the guy I played with later on, who's another phenomenal drummer, phenomenal singer. And I'll tell you a little about his history, because he was it's part of my growth. But anyway, and then this bass player named Reggie Gellison, who was a left-handed bass player, he came in, and keyboard player's name was Tim Tobias, and the guitar player's name was Stone. He was part of the whole Curtin rhythm section.
Okay.
So
Which to me, you talk about R&B before. In my head, when you were talking about, I was thinking of Curtis Mayfield, that guy. And he wasn't really R&B. He was more like soul funk, but that he was dominated the R&B chart, you know.
Yeah. And also he was a poet. You know what I mean? He was sort of like a, you know,
Everything
when we talk
about
about
him,
rap, you know, you think about, you know, where people got a lot of their, how can I put it? You know, you're sampling from. Curtis Mayfield was sampled a lot.
He's
and
just
and
amazing.
Also what he said in his lyrics affected hip hop early on. You know what I mean?
Oh, his lyrics were heavy, man.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, but you understand, I mean, you know, I came from that era where we didn't have one chart, and you know about this, where it was just a chart of 100 different artists. It could be James Brown, Crosby, Stills and Nash. You know what I mean?
Earth, Wind and Fire, Curtis Mayfield, the Rolling Stones,
Jim Croce. I could keep
Doors,
going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, it was really funny. But I liked it better, to be honest with you, because you got to hear everything. Then everything got stratified. And it was like, well, you know, how many radio can I listen to one radio station at a time, right? You know,
I think that's the thing, is that, you know, I call it segregation of music. I mean, I think
totally.
You know, I think if it stayed that way, I think we would have gone a lot further, even if we went into all different genres. You know what I mean? Because it would have been a melting pot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the thing. It wouldn't be like, oh, I can reach over here in this category or this. It's just, you heard everything. You know? But anyway, when they counted off the song, it didn't sound like my song. It sounded like something entirely different. And I looked over at Maurice and I said, that's not my song. He said, absolutely, it's your song. He said, I just rearranged it. Oh, you changed it? I said, yeah. This is where the arrangement's going to be. I said, oh, okay. So I'm trying to sing over the track, you know, in my head. I'm like, still don't sound like my song. You know,
you're hearing nothing that's relatable,
because it's totally changed. So after they did the rhythm section, then the next thing was they brought in a small string section from the Chicago Symphony. Now that was heavy. Because, you know, the rhythm section, the guys were like heavyweights, man. I mean, they killed on the track. It was phenomenal, you know. But the thing that really blew me away was like the strings. You know, hearing my song coming together on a level. You hear that on the radio. You know, you never thought that you would be a part of something like that. It really wasn't.
You're responsible for it, not just a part of it.
Right.
You birthed it, basically.
Totally, as a writer, you know. So once they got it kind of compiled together, they went on ahead and started tracking vocals, and they started sending me, you know, cassettes. And so I said, oh, now I hear what you're doing. And I'm like, now I understand what you mean by a hit. I said, this is incredible. And so the mother of the group, well, so she was the manager, asked me, said, you got some more songs? Said, this is a smash. We need more songs.
And the name of this band was North, South, East, and West.
East and West, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Evidently, I mean, they had other writers. They had these twin girls. I only remember the girl Geraldine, but she had a twin sister, and they were lyricists for the production company. So I don't know if they came up with stuff or not, but they sure did, you know, ask me more than once for more songs. So I had another song that I had wrote, and Kyle Boynton sang on the little demo I made on the cassette. So at that point, I was like, okay, maybe they'll like it, maybe they won't. Well, not like, oh, this is going to be embarrassing. I gave it to them, submitted it, and they said, we love it. I said, this is starting to get weird to me. Because you know what I mean? I really was feeling really weird about this, because I was like, what? I don't get it. How does people like stuff that I do? Because I've been so, you know, sort of just overly bombarded with negativity from people about what they perceive.
Yeah, that's what you're like, man. I totally get that, because all of a sudden you're like, someone's giving me positive affirmation. What is
Right.
It almost makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
When you're not used to it. Because that's the thing about us being people, man. Even bad situations, we adapt.
That's
and
right.
That becomes our norm. Guys living in a prisoner of war camp in Vietnam under the ground or something, they got used to it.
Yeah, that's it,
know?
man. That's it. I mean, just
I
like,
totally get it, man.
yeah, man. Just like if you go through war zones in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
You know, you're right there. And I've done that. I've been standing at on the corner, where it's one gang on the one side and one gang on the other. I've been standing there, you know. I could have just been shot up. But luckily I was with somebody that they respected, you know. But it was just so weird to me to hear something positive.
Yeah.
So it didn't last a long time. But the idea, I think, for me was like, okay, how do I expand on this? So nothing else came into play until I was 22. And I had just got married. And I get a call from a drummer who was my drum teacher, Frank Donaldson. And he called me and said, RAMSEY Lewis is looking for a bass player, you know. And I'll tell you, I'm not the greatest storyteller, but what was weird about it is that I met RAMSEY Lewis before Frank called me at an Earth, Wind & Fire concert.
Like, just in the audience?
No, in the audience, and just walking by. And I said, hi,
How
Ramsey.
weird is that?
Hi, Ramsey. He said, hi. He stopped and said, hi, how are you doing? I said, I'm fine. I'm fine. You know, I you know, we exchanged a couple words, but it was like, that was it.
And you were,
know I mean?
But you
didn't even know I was a musician.
Yeah, so you were just a fan of his and said, "Hey, Ray."
Yeah, yeah. You could say that. I mean, you know,
how weird is that?
I knew about Sun Goddess. You know what I mean?
That's.
I knew nothing. I didn't know. I knew about the In Crowd and Hang On Snoopy as a child, but you know, you just it's kind of weird because, you know, when you think about it, now I think about it. What was the only group I could remember that was instrumental was Booker T and the MGs.
Okay. Green Onions. Yeah, sure, Green Onions.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that sounded bizarre to me because there's no vocals. You know what I mean? So you got that, and you got RAMSEY Lewis, In Crowd, and Hang On Snoopy. So, and then Sun Goddess. So I get this call and to audition for RAMSEY Lewis. And I looked at my wife at the time and I said, Frank is calling me to audition for RAMSEY. And she said, you're going to get it. You're going to get that. You're going to get the gig. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I don't know if I'm, you know, ready for that. So I went in for the audition and he said, play me something. So I just got out of college. I stayed in college for about a year and a half, and I played with the Northeastern Jazz Ensemble. We won the Big Band of the Year, and then we went over to Poland representing the United States, and it was incredible. But I didn't know that it was going to lead to that, you know, to having audition with RAMSEY Lewis. And so I went into the audition. I played Autumn Leaves on the bass, which, you know, I thought that'd probably be the only thing I can play. I played it for him on a 4-string bass. And then we played a couple other things. He said, thank you. And basically said goodbye. I said, that's it, you know. And the other guy, Mitch Hennis, was the other bass player, who was a phenomenal upright bass player, great reader, you know, I felt like I didn't have a chance against that, you know. So went home and
You're 22.
22 years old.
You know what? I got married the first time at 22 also. You think back, like, this is so wrong.
It's so wrong. It's, you have no idea.
Like you have no business being married at 22. Man.
Right. It's just like, wait a minute, I'm still a kid.
I know, like, what was I was just on autopilot. It was like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, man.
It's just like,
what? I don't know. It's just, you know, what is right? You know, you marry for spiritual reasons, and then you really don't know the detail of all that. It's just like, it's just thrown in your face. You know?
Yeah, totally.
That's the best way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get a call, pick up the phone, because, you know, there's no cell phone. There's no pagers. You know, there's telephone booths. There's phones.
Yeah.
You know, and I pick up the phone, and then this voice came on over the phone. He said, "You got the gig." It sounded like Lurch. His voice is so rich and deep. You can, it almost vibrates the speaker in the phone. You got the gig. Like, who is this? This is RAMSEY Lewis. I said, you said I got the gig. He said, yes, congratulations. I'm going to have you call Dennis Booth, who was the tour manager.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get you fitted. We're going to give you a tour schedule, and we're going to start rehearsing like immediately. I looked at my wife and I said, I got the gig. She said, I told you you're going to get the gig. Not knowing, okay, I'm thinking, oh, well, cool. It's going to be, you know, I'll go out a couple of days on the weekend. I'm thinking like it's going to be like a wedding kind of thing.
Right.
You know, go out a week.
Like fly dates from Thursday to Sunday.
Schedule, yeah. And I was gone, I think 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah.
I saw the schedule and I looked at my wife. I said, oh my God. She said, this is incredible. I said, well, I think it's incredible too, but what about us? You know, kind of, you know. So I remember doing the first gig, and actually I have the cassette of that, but the tape snapped and I have to fix it, but it's my first gig with RAMSEY.
Where was that?
It was somewhere like North Dakota, or,
you know what? That's amazing that it was like in North Dakota.
Yeah, something like that.
That's like
weird. Somewhere.
Who's like, were there any black people at that?
Well,
I gotta ask.
You have to understand,
North Dakota, like,
you know, here's something I have to say, that RAMSEY had totally crossed over.
Okay.
So
the In Crowd, that song, I mean, it's been beat to death, but it's amazing. I listen to that every day.
Hang On Snoopy. I mean, those are #1 pop hits. He had won 3 Grammys from that stuff. So our audience, think about it like this. Our audience is basically the white elite.
Okay.
I mean, rich. The people that would go see Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
You know
okay.
I mean?
That makes
that kind of, yeah. So
that makes total sense. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we would play these halls, and you wouldn't really see black people. You would see white people dressed up in suit and ties and gowns, you know, coming to see RAMSEY Lewis, and we dressed up in tuxedos.
Yeah.
So the first gig I did, you know, we were playing, and, you know, I felt pretty good about it. I was still like wet behind the ears. So he says, me and the drummer are going to leave. I said, where are you going? He said, you're going to go out there and solo. I said, what do you mean? He said, you were just going to leave, and you're going to play something by yourself. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. What? So
first gig,
I walk up to the front of the stage. The spotlight hits me. It's quiet. And I had to figure out something to play. Not just to play, but something to keep the interest of people.
And it was a trio. It was you, drummer. It was you, the drums,
and
the guy
Ramsey.
who hooked you up with the audition, and Ramsey.
Right, and about 5,000 to 10,000 people.
That's all.
So it was very scary, extremely scary. So I just started playing. It was like, I didn't know what to, what do you do? Okay,
you electric or up? Was it upright or electric gig?
Electric.
Okay.
Electric at a 4-string. At a 4-string Ibanez that my wife bought me.
Do you laugh back now? I think, I only.
No!
How can I play 4-string?
No. I still have 4-string. Luckily. And but anyway, we ended up playing Autumn Leaves. So I'm playing, I'm noodling around and stuff. So Ramsey and drummer comes back, the audience gives me, big applause, and we start playing the song. Then I get a solo again.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, I go back out there and I'm soloing again. I'm playing over Autumn Leaves. I got support from Ramsey, the drummer. So I think I did like several solos in the show. But when I started playing with my thumb, that's when I got the standing ovations.
Okay.
Because they had never seen nobody play like that, or play that fast, or play that intense. It just like looked like an alien to most of those people.
Yeah, that's pretty. I'm a guy that loves music, and I'm familiar with, and I was watching what you were doing when I first got hip to you, and I was like, I've never seen anything like that, man. I mean, I just haven't. You play faster than some guitar.
I play everybody. Yeah, I can double 124. No, 200. I want to say 220 beats. I can double that.
Beats per minute.
And you won't see an expression on my face. I play with all 5 fingers on the right hand, and I use the nails as picks. Yeah. So I'm picking like this. This is what I'm doing. Thumb in and out, first finger, second finger, third finger, fourth, back, like this.
Nobody does that. This.
No, it doesn't exist. And you can't see me do it because my hand's like this.
You can't see you do it because it's so freaking fast. You'd have to.
Right. and it's fast, but it looks animated because it looks slow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's because I have all the support in my right hand. So, but anyway, after the show, he said, I need to sit down with you. Ramsey said this. And said, I need to teach you how to set up a solo when you're playing by yourself. So it's like you have a section where you're playing just beautiful chords. And then you add a section where you're kind of like playing notes in between the chords, because you need the chords so you can keep the attention of the audience so they know where you're going. And playing beautiful things, not playing fast and all that stuff. We already know what you can do with that. And then the final thing is you need to set up the melody for the song before me and the drummer gets back. So play the whole melody of Autumn Leaves. So I started working on that.
That was very cool of him to like approach you in such a, I mean, look, it was just his best interest, but to break it down for you, I've talked to people at artists who just tore him a new butt, man, and he was like very professional about it, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, he took me under his wing, like, like his own son.
Yeah.
But it wasn't cool. Like, my level of my, musicality was so far beyond, he could see that. So he knew he had to mold and shape me, but he knew once he did that, he knew what I was going to become. And that's the heavy part. So, the other thing was learning how to play through music, like through chord changes. Now he helped me to a certain extent, but the real guys that really helped me to become a lyrical musician or a bassist is a guitarist named Henry Johnson.
Henry's the nicest guy. I had him on here, man. He's lovely guy, man.
I used to carry like 50 books in a suitcase because they didn't charge us for luggage back then,
Okay.
You could bring,
man, pile them on. Yeah. What else you got to do in the rooms at night?
Yeah,
man?
You got to carry, several bags, So I'd have a bag for my clothes and a bag for my books. So I had one bag was just full of books. So Henry saw all my books. He said, take them home. I don't ever want to see them again. We're going to study out of one book over chord changes.
That's so. When were you playing with Henry?
Early, around, I think we started around 84, 85, 84.
So that was with Ramsey.
Yeah, until I left the group.
So you left him. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's a lovely guy, and he's a very good teacher as well.
Oh, and extremely. But you know, if you would have heard us talking, it sounded like we were arguing because I had my he's
so chilled out. He's such a laid back guy.
Henry is the nicest guy.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah.
I love him with all my heart. We used to have arguments after gigs. We do the gig, we play, I go straight to his room, and then he's digging into me.
Lay into you for what you did. Yeah. You missed this one. This was an F sharp in here, not an F natural.
You don't play that note. That note doesn't work. That phrase, man, you didn't play through the changes, man. And he helped me, and Freddie Hubbard helped me. Those two guys were like that.
God, talk about two talents working with you, man. That's
the greatest.
That's pretty good. Freddie Hubbard and Henry Johnson were like your musical mentors.
I mean, you can't get no better than that, man.
And
sharing the stage every night with Freddie Hubbard, man. I mean, it's so much to tell, man, but it's like I'm trying to condense it all. It's just too much. But anyway, with Ramsey, the great thing is, and where it paid off for me, was the sight reading, because Ramsey is classically trained.
Right.
So once I learned how to solo, and you got to understand that the funny thing, and now I'm leading back to the writing aspect too, is when I got the gig with Ramsey, I think it was our first or second rehearsal, this same question came up. The same question that the manager and the mother of North, South, East, and West came from Ramsey. He said the same exact.
Can you write?
Right. I'll say the same thing. I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's just like, okay. He said, go downstairs. There's an upright piano.
Go downstairs.
It's like, go downstairs. This was, rehearsal, whatever. I think he was going to work with Frank or something. It was just weird. I went downstairs and I started writing. I said, Ramsey likes pretty stuff. So I'm gonna write something that sounds like Burt Bacharach. Now, how could I even think of that in my head?
So how did you make that leap though from using writing as basically kind of like therapy or healing?
It was totally therapy. But again, subconsciously, I didn't know that I was even writing. That's the crazy part.
Okay, now I
get what I'm saying. So as I went to North, South, East, and West, I knew I was a writer. But Ramsey, was so diverse. He was what's the word? Is an impressionist? He didn't
eclectic. He was like
he didn't write. He didn't write.
Oh, he didn't.
He could write. He could play other people's songs.
But he didn't write. I didn't know that.
He wasn't really a per se writer. Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
But he could read anything. Nobody to me could play a song more heartfelt than Ramsey Lewis.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. You said Ramsey likes pretty.
Yeah.
Elegant, pretty. Yeah. That was really.
So the first thing that came to mind was Burt Bacharach and Dionne Warwick.
Right.
I said, I want to write something like that.
Right.
I sat down and just wrote this. First song was called A Special Place. And I wrote it on piano. And then I kind of went back upstairs. Now you got to remember, I'm writing. This is just, it's bare bones. So.
Now, were there words in this song?
No.
So that must have been a bit of a challenge.
Right. So I wrote the idea, the melody. So called me back up and said, what you got? I just kind of played this idea. And he said, I love it. I said, go chart it out. I'm like, chart it out? I said, yeah. Right. I was like, oh no. So I went home and
price of talent is more work that you're thinking.
man.
Yeah, man.
So I wrote it, wrote it out again. You know, it was just a raw idea. And you know, I was able to come up with some changes and that sort of thing. So I went back, you know, it was the following day, and put the chart in front of him. He played it. He said, I love it. It was like this, it was like so surreal. It was like, I was like, is this north, south, east, and west all over again?
Yeah.
And his words out of his mouth was, go back downstairs and write me another one. I'm like, this is weird.
You had to feel pretty good though, like when he said, I love it. That had to, like, I know you were probably detached from that because of how you grew up. Because when you grow up hard like that, you don't assimilate positives. I totally get that.
You don't at all. It's just weird. It's almost irritating because you don't know.
You don't know how to react.
Yeah, you don't. You just kind of like look at the person like something's wrong here, you know?
Right.
And so when I wrote another song and he named it. So I thought he was gonna come up with this beautiful name. He said, we're gonna call the, you know, I made it, you know, wrote a chart out, and you know, he tried it out and he said, oh, I love it. He said, we're gonna call it Just a Little Ditty. I said, just a little ditty? What is that, man? Why that's
from bad to worse. Yeah, that's horrible, man. Just a little.
You're calling my
just a little ditty.
Right. And then he was working on a little idea. And so
you're thinking, hey man, you stick to piano. I'll
you know what I mean, man? I'm like, what is it? Just a little ditty, man. I'm like,
this
dude,
is awful, man.
You're 42 years old, man. I'm like, can't you think of something like, you know, beautiful or something like a love?
Just a little flower. Substitute something for ditty.
It's like a passe. You know, it's like what do you call it? Interlude.
like some incidental thing. Yeah.
Right. So. God. So he was working on some kind of idea. So he said, why don't you go and see what you can do with this idea I'm doing, basically. And I kind of, you know, he asked the drummer to get involved. And so I went and kind of put my 2 cents into it. And he did what he did. And then the drummer, you know, Frank Donaldson did, I forgot what he put in to the actual song, but all three of us play piano. That's the great.
That's really cool.
That all three of us play piano, so we were able to relate to them pretty good. Being that I felt that I was more melodic, and because of the way I played bass, it's based off of how I play piano. So Ramsey and I had a real, a pretty good understanding about where melody and chords went, and so we wrote the song I Can't Wait. So you got to remember now, I'm just writing. I don't know anything else about what's going to happen.
Did he give you co-write credit on all this?
If you go on YouTube, yeah, you'll see the songs Just a Little Ditty, I Can't Wait, and Special Place. Written
That was very cool. I mean, it was the right thing, and you hate to say that was cool that he did it because it's just doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But
he put me as the sole writer, the only writer of A Special Place, the only writer of This Little Ditty, and then the three of us wrote the single.
That's really,
you know,
he's a good guy to do that. Again, you should be doing that, but that's not how the music business works, especially back then, especially with a 22-year-old kid.
That's right. And then the final thing, he had a song. Now, I don't know if you know who Charles Stephanie is, but when you hear the Way of the World album, that was produced by Charles Stephanie. When you hear the record Spirit, that was produced by Charles Stephanie, but he had died at that point. So I think Maurice basically finished out that album, but that was all Charles Stephanie. Charles Stephanie, there wouldn't be a Quincy Jones if Charles Stephanie had moved to LA from Chicago. He was the premier producer for Chess Records, and he was way ahead of his time. So the final thing on this record, he wrote the song called Chance Encounters.
Charles Stephanie did.
Yes. Very complicated song, all kind of time signatures. So Ramsey said to me, he said, I want you to, the song was written for two piano players.
Yeah, that's
so Ramsey said, I want you to go home and learn the other piano part on the bass.
Man, that's awesome.
He said, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, yeah. You learn the other part. I'm gonna play this part and you play the other part, you know. So we're doing a duet, basically.
Yeah.
So I learned that part, and that's where my ears started really taking over, because of course, you know, I could read it to some degree because it was all in treble clef, but because Ramsey was such an incredible reader, and I could read very well myself, but not, I mean, he's classically trained. So what ended up happening, we figured out how to play like a piano duet, but I was still playing the bass. So he said, we'll take this section, you'll play bass. Then here's this section where we'll play both together as piano duet. And then, so this was going in and out of the song. It was all these time signature changes. So now, again, I still don't know what's happening.
But he was, what a kind guy. I mean, what a non-ego he had for an artist.
That was my father was I loved him. My father was so cool. My father was like the birth of the cool. That I would have said, that's your nickname, Daddy. Birth of the cool. You the coolest guy in the world, you know. But Ramsey took me under his wing like a son. So the other thing Craig, I didn't know is that all the stuff I was doing was preparing me for my first album with Ramsey. So you got to understand, I get the gig,
the
tour, and we immediately go in the studio and record this album, Chance Encounters.
Yeah.
So I'm actually recording. And so, of course, record my 3 songs. And the songs like one I co-wrote with Ramsey and Frank, that became the single. And that was a song that was featuring me on bass, doing a bass solo. That came all over. Columbia Records put that record out as a single and was all over the country on radio. So you can imagine 22 years old, turning on my radio in my car and hearing it several times a day on R&B station. We had 3 R&B stations. It was just
on rotation all the time.
Yeah, and I'm hearing my bass solo, you know. Let me think about it. I think my bass solo was like 8 to 16 bars or something like that. It was just
great,
crazy. And so and then I, you know, we recorded my songs, but then after we recorded my parts, I was done. You know, it's like I was just coming in for the session and doing the record. So they put real strings on my song, which I didn't know they were going to do that. It's like, it's like so much of the thing that I went through.
North, south, east, west. Yeah.
Right. And it was beautiful, man. And just a little ditty, the owner of the studio, the late Paul Serrano, played trumpet on my song, just a little ditty, as the lead instrument. He was a great trumpet player, and it sounded cool.
That's nice, man.
So now we did the album, and so I was happy with that. So, you know, you figure, okay, so what's next? I mean, you know, I don't know what's it. A photo session. A photo session? What do you mean? I mean, like, yeah, we're taking pictures. We're getting you an outfit or outfits to dress you up. We're taking pictures. I mean, what do you mean? He said, you're going to be on the record, on the cover of the record. I mean, you know,
this is a fantasy for you. You have no ability to.
I'm just in a daze.
Yeah.
So, you know, we did this big photos, you know, photo session. Super professional photographer. I think Columbia sent out. I don't know if it was from New York, probably from New York. So Frank, the drummer, Ramsey, and myself. you take these pictures and, you know, next thing I know, long and behold, you know, a month or two later, here's the album cover. I get the album cover, and you see the cover is like sort of like this disarray looking thing, and it looked like almost like Chance. What's the movie Encounters?
Close Encounters.
Yeah, Close
the
Encounters.
third kind. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
stuff, you know, furniture flying around, stuff. But then you turn the album cover over, these giant 3 heads are like, you know, together, and I'm like, it's me. And I look at the album credits and I see Bill Dickens on bass, Bill Dickens on bass, Bill Dickens on bass. Then I see the songs I wrote. He says, song written by Bill Dickens. Nobody else. Next song that I wrote, written by Bill Dickens. The single, written by Bill Dickens, Ramsey Lewis Says.
How did that, what at that point were you able to allow some of that to creep in?
It was so overwhelming. You know, let me say this. I'm not going to go off the beaten path. I'm trying to keep focused, but when you are sort of this person where you didn't have like a Joe Jackson, like for like you know, as a father, like Michael Jackson, his brothers, and his daughter, yeah, you just kind of like, mom just basically showed you the ropes on how to play, you know, and exposed you to all of these acts, you know, a lot of them ended up playing with, and you know, which is weird too. So I just felt weird. I mean, it felt like you know, I'm just like, what is happening to me here? You know, I can't say. I think when I really felt that I was successful is when I heard "I Can't Wait" on the radio.
Right.
And I heard my bass solo, and I heard a DJ say, "Who's that bass player? He's incredible." Oh my God. I was just overwhelmed, you know, and then to mistakenly, not knowing, I'm watching, you know, I used to watch General Hospital.
Right.
So I'm sitting there watching General Hospital. Everything's,
it's so funny that you used to watch General
Hospital. Right. and then, you know, you see all of the stars of the General Hospital, and they're all in this party. It's the same, you know, that they were all in this party. And our song comes on.
Wow.
And they played it all through, all the way through my soul. It was like, you could hear it. It's very loud, and you see the actors acting, but then you see a room full of white people dancing to this song I wrote. It said, you know, it's like, I never took heroin. I've dibbled and dabbled in some things, but never took heroin back in high school. I thought I was hallucinating.
Yeah.
It felt like I was hallucinating. I said, this can't be possible. But it was. I said, this is crazy. The whole song. And I got a royalty check.
I was just going to ask you, was somebody looking after your affairs to make sure you were plugged in to either ASCAP or BMI?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely not.
Oh, absolutely not. So how did?
So I basically, Ramsey took all my publishing. I didn't know nothing about that. Too wet behind the ears. So I did get my writers.
Yeah.
You know, but the great.
So he was a good guy. Up till a point.
Old school.
Up till a wallet.
Old school, man. Old school, man. We have to do a whole nother show on that. Old school, man. It's a whole nother thing, man. But you know, it was heavy, man. I mean, you know, I'm still living in Evanston, record all over the radio. You know, I'm walking around, you know, town, and you know, go back to my old neighborhood. And some people congratulated me. I think it was very hard for them to say that, you know, congratulate me because I came out of the negativity.
And yeah, you made something of yourself.
And now they're hearing me all over the radio.
Right.
You know, and if that felt good to me, because my response to them was that, well, if it wasn't for you being so negative, I probably wouldn't have kept going.
I get it. Righteous indignation, man.
Yeah,
I get it. I totally get that, man. You know, people piss you off enough and make you feel shitty enough about yourself, and you say, "I'm going to show you."
Yeah. And it was more of a subconscious thing, not something intentional. You know?
Sure, totally get it though.
So that was a heavy thing for me. And then it didn't end there. It was, you know, the single did well. I didn't know that I was like one of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bass players in the history of R&B that had a solo on R&B radio.
That's so cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, it's like we didn't have I didn't have, you know, there wasn't a support of like Guitar Player magazine, or, you know, Bass Player magazine didn't exist.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Which I probably would
probably be on the cover, man. Are you kidding me?
All over, be super famous, because 200 days a year, television, doing TV shows from Arsenio Hall, everything else under the sun, was phenomenal for me. So after the success of that record, of course, we went on tour, and the highlight of that show was my solo on "I Can't Wait." You know, I get out there.
That's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, that's actually on YouTube. With and so after the success of that record, when we toured, then it was time to do the next record. So as a sideman, you really don't know if you're going to be on the record or not, because it's always up to who the producer is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And RAMSEY had his hands in the production as like a co-producer, or, you know, you kind of oversee the producer kind of thing, you know. So next record came up, and I played bass on that record, but there was something a little different about this one. We re-recorded Reasons by Earth, Wind & Fire. Okay. So how did it come about? I think it was I talked with Anthony Jackson when he had the All-Star Band with Chaka Khan. Mm-hmm. She had a couple guys, Steve Ferroni and Hamish Stewart from the Average White Band.
Sure.
She had Master Henry Gibson from Curton days on percussion, Anthony Jackson on bass, the Brecker Brothers, horn section, and Marcus Miller's cousin, Denzel Broadway Miller, on keys. He was in outer space. He's phenomenal.
Denzel Broadway Miller.
That's right. That's his name.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's hilarious, man. But I remember talking to Anthony something about, I think it was about detuning. I think he was detuning his E to a B at times. Excuse me. Oh, that's my phone. Let me turn that off. Yeah, he was detuning his E down to a B, E down to a low B. So we did Reasons, and we did it in the key of E flat. So I couldn't use the E string because the E string wouldn't, you know, of course it's tuned to E. I can't play it in E flat. Sure. So I tried this idea, and I relearned Reasons with my E string tuned down to a low B.
Okay.
So we recorded the song. I'm on 4-string bass. I had low B, A, D, G. So it was very weird for me, right? But when you hear it back on the recording, it sounded so huge and rich.
Okay.
You know, that it was like, Ramsey just basically keep it like that. Just, when we do the song, go tune it down. It sounds great. So I recorded on that whole album. I think, did I do all of it? I think maybe one song, because it was the same thing like the first album I did. They did Up From Where We Belong,
Okay.
from the movie. And I wasn't on that track, but who played bass on that track was Aaron Mills from Cameo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he played bass, who's a very good friend of mine and one of my heroes. And so
they're out of New York, I think, right? Weren't they?
Yeah.
Right.
But I think Aaron Mills is South Carolina.
Okay.
And so anyway, long story short, I played on the second album, La Fleur. I played my fretless bass on I'm trying to think, was it Bet You By God? Well, I think one of them songs, it was a ballad. I played a fretless on it. It sounded like an upright. So there was these things that I was, was doing, and Ramsey was pushing me, constantly pushing me, beyond my norm,
Yeah.
And so so that album came out. And then I heard, the Earth, Wind and Fire song we did, Reasons, and that was all over the radio. So here I am again on the radio.
Yeah.
The next one, that one was beyond anything I ever done in my life. And by that time, that's when I got my Smith Jackson 6-string bass. That bass cost $10,000.
Holy crap. Did you start getting sessions also as a result of your success on the first Ramsey record that you worked on?
I remember, I think, well, we talked about this by phone, but, I started recording at 13.
Right.
And the first song I think it's called No Greater Love by the Gene Johnson Singers. You can find that on YouTube. I'm 13 years old.
That's amazing, man.
Yep. And so the same student, funny thing about it, so I'm 13 years old. I recorded at Paul Serrano's. I've recorded at Paul Serrano's at 13. I recorded my first 2 albums with Ramsey at Paul Serrano's studio. Both of them. And Paul Serrano, the owner of the studio, played on my song Just a Little Ditty.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So the third album was Ramsey Lewis featuring the London Symphony.
Okay.
So this was my first album with a 100-piece orchestra. Everything, I had to sight read everything. Wasn't a problem for me.
Right.
But he said, Bill, and the producer was the late Dr. James Mack, who produced a group Champagne, and they had a number one pop hit called How About Us. And he produced another song for the Manhattans called Shining Star, which was, I think that won a Grammy for him.
Yeah, that was a big hit.
And so that was our conductor for all of the orchestras after we did the Classic Encounter album, which was the London Symphony. So we recorded that album at Abbey Road Studio, or the Beatles studio.
Nice.
So that was a really heavy thing for me, because I walked across that same street the Beatles walked across, and and then I'm and it was weird. I think it was we're in the big room with the orchestra, and the other room was Mick Jagger and Niles Rodgers working on something, and so it was really heavy for me, man, because 9 days we recorded all these songs. And James and Ramsey decided basically we want you to take a solo on this one piece with the orchestra.
Very cool.
I'm still in my early 20s. So I went back to my hotel, and I was woodshedded on the changes and everything. I'm by the time I was playing my Anthony Jackson 6-string. So stuff was way ahead of its time, not knowing, because
I can't believe you paid 10 grand for that bass back in that day, man.
Oh man, no. Here's what's scary about it. And it's like I told you, man, we could do this as series. It's so much stuff. But the bass cost $10,000. But what happened with that bass is that I used to endorse Ken Smith basses. So I used to have Ken Smith 4-string basses. I saw Anthony Jackson with Eyewitness with Steve Kahn for 3 nights straight at the Brecker Brothers Club, 7th Avenue South. So this is the weird thing. Ken Smith and myself used to be sparring partners in karate. So
really?
I would spar, you know, Ken, you know, we would spar with each other and that sort of thing. It was, you know, for fun. But Ken would always give me a bass every time I come into New York. I would, you know, I exchange basses. I would never keep the bass. It was just alone. So Ken came to see me at Fat Tuesdays with Ramsey, and Ramsey gave me a solo in the show. So I played the song called "Will Weep for Me." And
yeah, that's a pretty well-known track.
That's right, man.
Yeah.
And I played it by myself, man. And so Ken told me, he said, man, you didn't see me. I was crying. I said, why were you crying? He said, it was so beautiful that tears came out of my eyes. So the long story short, so the next day he calls me, he says, come over to the apartment. I got something for you. Bring your bass. I said, another bass? He said, yep. I said, okay. So he said, this one, I don't want you to open the case up until you get back to your hotel. I said, no problem. Get in the cab, go back to my hotel. Unzip the bag. It was like I just pulled the headstock out, just the top. There was 3 keys instead of 2, because I'm thinking it's going to be 4 strings, right?
Right.
And so I pulled the rest of the headstock out, and I said, it's 6. And then I pulled the zipper down. I pulled the bass out. I'm like, it's Anthony Jackson bass. This thing is $10,000. I called Ken up. I said, Ken, I can't afford this.
Yeah.
He said, no, don't worry about the price. He said, I'll put you on a payment plan. I'm going to only charge you $2,500. I said, what?
Wow.
I said, what? He said, the guy that was going to buy the bass was a rock guy. He canceled that whole order after he heard me play Will Weep for Me, and gave me the bass he was making for the Anthony Jackson bass, which I have the only one left in existence on this planet.
Do you know, can you say who the guy was?
The guy that bought the rock guy? No.
Yeah.
Unknown guy. Wasn't nobody famous. Nobody famous.
But he happened to see your performance.
Ken Smith did.
So Ken canceled the order.
Yeah, he canceled the order with this rock guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
that's really respect, man.
Yeah, man. And like he said, it's yours. So, you know, he said, we'll work it out. It's going to be your bass. And so the first person I called after I talked to Ken, I was so overwhelmed. I called Marcus Miller.
Oh, that's cool.
Hey, Marcus, man, guess what I got? I got Anthony Jackson, baby. I got the Ken Smith 6-string, man. He said, cool. Click. He just,
what is up with that?
You know, New York, man. You from New York.
Yeah, but that's rough, man.
Like, I talked with him about that years later, but we fell out loud.
Cool. Click.
Anyway,
nice to talk with you.
It's all right, man.
Oh my God.
But anyway, so the funny thing about it, you got to understand that it's like you're a guitar player. So if you think about somebody gave you a 7-string guitar, and I
wouldn't know what the hell to do. I can barely handle these 6 strings.
And you had to go on your gig,
right,
and play for all these people, and you just like you're playing, and this is what happened to me. All of a sudden, notes start dropping out, because what happened was I never had a B string, right, and I never had a C string. So I'm just trying to play, and the notes were dropping out because I was unconsciously hitting these other strings.
Of course.
So I thought I had to shorten my chord. So I'm like, move the chord around because notes kept dropping out.
But you had to adapt physically to the instrument.
I had to from 4-string to 6. I didn't go to 5.
Yeah.
5, but I went to 6. And then on top of that, the bass had lights on it. So Ramsey said, go back to Ken and turn them lights off.
Turn them lights off, man. I'm sure. Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that.
Right. Yeah. So Ken made me a customized box that had a switch on it. It was like a power box so I could plug it in the wall and bypass the batteries. So I
Okay,
had to
cool.
turn the lights on and off. Plus, I had a Neutron built into the base.
Like a
That
damn
was even
Christmas
crazy.
Christmas tree walking
Oh,
around
it's
there.
crazy. Oh yeah, man. It
Lights.
was Santa Claus, like a crack. I don't know, but you know, it
Wow.
was
So how long did that take you to adapt physically to the extra two strings? That's not like easy, I would imagine.
no, it's not easy because it's not only adapting, but I had to like reteach myself to read.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not used to, like, my highest notes are up here, but on a sixth string is down in almost to the lower part of the bass. I can hit those same notes that were higher on a four. So I had to reteach myself how to read. Then you have the low B. So
Wow.
yeah, and
I bet people tell you, hey man, this looks easy because you make it so easy. But people don't realize the easier something looks in any creative endeavor, it means the guy or the gal doing it killed himself 10 times harder to make it look easy. There's sweat involved, and people say, man, you make it look easy. Yeah, because I put in 20,000 hours doing this shit.
That's it, man.
Yeah,
That's it,
yeah.
man.
People don't realize that.
People don't know, man. And so, you know, that was a whole nother thing, man. And that was the bass I used on the album with the London Symphony. And so when they gave me the solo on the song, that's what I was playing my sixth string. I was 23, 24. These albums were coming out like, I think like every 6 months or something like that. It was just like, that
was back in the day, man. Now it's,
man. Yeah, man. So
and they were quality records.
Right. Yeah. So I got through the solo flawlessly. I mean, it was phenomenal, man. And they even said something on the credits about my solo on the album, you know, because it was
nice.
Sony Classical.
Okay.
That was the label, you know, and so, you know, all this stuff was just being exposed to me, man. I felt like I really nailed it when I did the album with the London Symphony, because, you know, some songs I would play, there would be 5 bass players, you know, upright bass players, bowing my part. So you know, it was just incredible for me, and it was also incredible that I nailed it sight reading wise. And then all I thought about was my mother the whole time.
Oh, right. Yeah,
you know, yeah. And just so grateful, man. And
it's funny how you had like a balance there of like good and not so good.
That's right.
That's a real awkward, or it's like, how do you make heads or tails?
You don't, man. I mean, that's why, you know, a cat like RAMSEY had to like reinvent me, man. I mean, not only as a musician, but as a person, man, because RAMSEY saw how I dressed, saw how I acted, you know. You know, you go from being a nobody to now you're in newspapers, you know. You know, every show we did, you know, we could get the newspaper. He'll get the newspaper, he'll look at it, and I'm like in there. And they would say so much about me, you know, I almost feel bad for sometimes for RAMSEY, you know, but I'm this young kid, and, you know, I'm not standing up there like a bass player just playing. I'm running around. I'll fall on my back and kick my legs up in the air. I learned all that from Verdine. You know, right. And so just like it just added another dimension to the show of energy, plus all the stuff I was playing, you know. Some people thought I had like pedals on, you know, stump pedals on my bass, because they thought, you know, maybe some type of delay or something, because they said nobody plays that fast. That's not human.
No, it's not. But that's your 10,000 hours, man.
That's your 10,000 hours. It's still going, man. Sure, you know. But you know, that was a heavy feat for me, man, because I mean, playing on an album like that it changed my life, man, because after we did that album, we went on tour and we played with just about every major symphony, including the Boston Pops in the United States.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so you're in,
and you made that happen. Collectively, the band made that happen.
That's right. Along with Columbia.
Yeah.
You know, and then Sony Classical, which is part of, you know, Columbia. So we did a tour. We did a lot of orchestra dates. you know, and it wasn't, at that point, it wasn't weird to me, but the only thing is that now you have, you know, 100-piece orchestra that has to adapt to 3 people.
Right. Yeah.
And classical players do not know how, they don't know. I mean, the London Symphony, they do nothing but pop records.
Right.
So we played like, it sounded like one unit. But the rest of the orchestra, it was just like in shambles, man. Our rehearsals were in shambles because most orchestras don't have a feel for playing behind musicians, let alone as jazz musicians or pop musicians.
Right.
You know, because it's so
they're very regimented, classical.
Right.
What you see is what you play.
That's exactly. And then they give out music to all the players, which is seasonal music. So you can play it, they played it over and over and over again. So, you know, luckily we had James Mack as our conductor, and he went on tour with us. And so he had to reteach everybody how to play and adapt to us, because also you have to remember, in most halls, you have like almost a half a second delay.
Yeah, those big halls, that's right. Yeah.
That's right. So everybody had to play a little ahead in order to catch up with us. And, you know, you told me the whole orchestra, you know.
So your rehearsals were, you didn't get a break there. You probably,
no. And you know, my big heart, you know, I felt sorry for them. A couple of the players kind of went against the rules of the union, and they would hang around after rehearsal and sit there, and I would watch them like working on parts, because a couple of cello players were featured on a couple of songs. So they weren't up to snuff. I mean, they read the part, but it just wasn't quite there. So they would sit there, and, you know, after rehearsal, they would just constantly go over, and I just sit there. You know, I didn't have to sit there. I mean, I'm with the star of the show, you know. Yeah. I mean, they look at all 3 of us as 3 stars, you know. But I just had this heart to just sit and just hang out with them, you know, and just even try to help them if I could.
Sure.
But yeah, man, to me, that was one of the big feats. And then, of course, co-producing RAMSEY Lewis, writing 4 songs for RAMSEY Lewis. 3 of the songs I played most of the instruments. And then I wrote a hit for him called Bernice, which was named after my ex-wife's mother, which that song came about from me writing that song on my 6-string trial, sort of off a trial and error. It became one of the highlights of the show because they left me on stage, and I'm playing this song that sounded like Earl Klugh.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, and it was, I may even play a little bit for you, but it was, that was heavy for me, because then I was, by that time I knew what publishing was, and I knew, you know, all my rights as a producer and that sort of thing. So I learned a lot from that. RAMSEY put me out there. His son really pulled me off of the project to co-produce with him.
Oh, okay.
So basically I was recording with the band, and the next thing, you know, his son pulled me out of the project, sort of like just work with him strictly. So it was just me and him going back and forth in the studio, and was working with a synclavier. I mean, it was just so real. I mean, I had my little sequencer and stuff, and so we dumped all my songs into a synclavier, and I'm like, this thing is $300,000.
Wow.
And then we had the Von Halyard, who I consider one of the great programmers, phenomenal programmer. He knew about the synclavier better than anybody. And he also worked with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. So I had the honor to work with him. And it was astounding, man. And so when it all came down to it, man, I got co-production credit on the album. And I'm just like, and I got the single. Right. Bernice was a single. It was a hit for RAMSEY. And it was just like, wow, man. I was just blown away. So it's like I said, it's so much to tell. There's still so much I haven't talked about, but, you know, long story short, it's just that, you know, for me, growing up the way I did as a child, I was exposed to the music. I was exposed to composition. I was exposed to artists. You know, subconsciously, it was in my head, I was going to be an artist. I don't know why. I just, you know, and then on top of that, it was only me.
Hold on a second. I want to talk about that for a second, because that's pretty big. Thinking about how you grew up, that you know, you got to give yourself some credit, because, you know, nobody was like patting you on the back.
Nobody.
Right. And so just the thought that you had, I'm going to do this, you know, thinking way beyond what, you know, statistically expectations are anything likely to be. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's a godsend.
Yeah, it's a God thing for sure, man.
It's a God thing, man. It's a God, totally, man. And
because what's the likelihood of people growing up the way you did, like even not just staying there and doing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean,
you know, you should be working like at the post office or punching a clock.
Right, that's right.
Yeah,
and being the underdog.
Right.
You know, I mean, I went through a lot of periods of my life that was the underdog, and then came out, you know, doing stuff that people were wishing they could do, or wishing that they could have a #1 hit, you know, gold or platinum status. They, you know, and it's just, it's so unreal, you know. But again, people think, oh man, you are so lucky. I said, you don't know how much tears, and, you know, how much, you know, I was emotionally wrecked, you know, trying to do all this stuff. And you know, the part that was the probably the most hurting is I think for me was the business side of the music business.
Yeah, getting screwed and learning the hard way. Yeah,
royally.
Well, it's amazing that it's funny, because Ramsey was good to a point. It's like everybody in your life was like, you know, the issues with your mom, she was good to a point. It's like,
yeah, everybody, man. You know, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like,
I know exactly what you mean.
No, it's like everybody was kind of the norm, you know.
Right.
You know, you felt inferior, you know, just, you know, to a certain degree. And I understand that. I mean, you know, Ramsey Lewis is the elite. And, you know, taking somebody from you know, kind of a dysfunctional family background somewhat, and taking them under your wing was it changed my life. And also, one of the things Ramsey did, and it's so emotional for me, is that he invited my father over to his mansion.
He did.
And my father was like one of the head cooks for Northwestern University. So that's a whole nother thing.
Where did Ramsey was out of Chicago? Was he in Chicago?
Yes. He lived right next door to Jesse Jackson.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
So like I was like, you want to invite my dad over? And I told my dad, he said, what? He said, yes, Ramsey wants you to come over for dinner. Because my dad never seen me play. And not once.
He never saw you play?
Not once. No.
Why?
Because he worked 3 jobs.
Yeah.
So the first time he saw me play was with Ramsey Lewis.
Yeah.
I don't think he understood what it was. You know what I mean? He's so far, he didn't go out to see shows, and you know, he worked 3 jobs.
Yeah.
He went from that and retired and died. That's pretty much his life. So yeah, Ramsey Lewis invited him over to his house, and it blew him away. I mean, Ramsey treated my dad like royalty, and you know, we're sitting at this big, huge table with all of Ramsey's children, his wife, and my dad is sitting like between me and Ramsey, and Ramsey's talking to my dad. And I'm like, it was like the joy was just pouring out of me. I mean, it was just it was one of the greatest moments of my life, you know. And my dad, you know, being a guy struggling and going through what he had to go through coming from the South. Him and my mother came from the deep South. My dad was from Durant, Mississippi. My mother from Kosciuszko, Mississippi. The same.
Oh my God, that was like the
Woodford.
Mississippi is one of like the most racial places like in the country, man.
You've heard of Emmett Till?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So I went through the same thing, and my dad saved my life.
Holy.
In Kosciuszko, and I was 12 years old, and my dad took me down south to hang out. I went out and hung out with him, and his 3 sisters and his mom. One of his sisters owned a grocery store behind the house, and she just said you can have everything for free. And I got so sick, I threw up everything. I lost my mind, man. Anyway, my dad took me to meet my mother's mother, her brother, and her sister. And I remember walking through the city of Kosciuszko, which is the town that Oprah Winfrey's father is from. And I think he's still there. He owns a barber shop there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, I've had some really weird experiences over the last several years where, after all my parents died and their brothers and sisters, well, I was kind of had a resurgence of knowing that I have a huge, huge family, and I have relatives that are half white, that look white. And these are these kids are drop dead gorgeous, but they look white. And they're like, they treat me like a father. It's weird.
This is all down in Mississippi.
Yeah, and then they're related to Isaac Hayes. So that's like Isaac Hayes is my cousin.
That's crazy.
It's just like, and there's some other things too that other people that they're working on. But before I say anything, I want to make sure they give me some concrete evidence. But other people that I'm related to, and that I would have never thought I would be related to anybody, because I was just this kid that was out there kind of lost on his own, you know what I'm saying, and just not knowing my family as far as my cousins and all that. We weren't that kind of family. We were close,
That's how dysfunctional families are usually. It's like the very isolated, man. You don't,
man.
Everybody else is bad, so we'll stay here. But wait a minute, this is really bad. This is really bad. Explain this to me.
You see, hey man, you see the other families is just as bad. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and so it's like the normal conversations for us as kids. It's like talking about, how can we run away, or how can we get away from our situations? That kind of thing. So we grew up in such a weird way, but it also drove me especially to be an overachiever.
Right.
Nobody told me I could play like this. Nobody told me I could write like this. I just didn't have nothing else,
I would also imagine that's where your humility comes from, because like your mindset is, well, I know how easy it is to have nothing. So it's like, what's the point of getting an ego about this? Here today, gone tomorrow, by the grace of God, like, you're up and breathing, and like, I would imagine that's why you're so humble, because when you grow up like that.
Because it's so, when everything is against you, and you're in the middle of successful people, successful artists, but you realize what's different is that all these artists, when they come off stage, they're human beings. They want to be people.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them can't really do that because you never know who you're going to run into, who you're going to meet. A lot of those artists get to the point that they long for attention, love, appreciation. And a lot of times they don't get it because everybody wants something from them.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Which is the downfall of most of the artists, a lot of the artists in R&B. The great thing with RAMSEY, we were able to be on shows with a lot of the biggest R&B artists of that time. And I got a chance because I was much, I was 20 something years younger. I was able to talk with some of those artists, hang out with them, you know, see the pressures they were going under, you know, but everybody comes off that stage. They just want to be regular people. They want to hang out with people, you know, that they're most of the time is the, you know, the other musicians and that sort of thing, you know. And you realize that, you know, we all kind of come from the same place. Most of us come from, you know, broken homes, or, you know, one or two may have been lucky and had a great family life, but a horrible life on their own personally, you know what I mean? And a lot of those people, unfortunately, from both my childhood and from the days of RAMSEY are dead.
Wow.
You know, and so, you know, it's a weird thing to still be here and alive and just, you know, being able to express where I really came from, what I did, you know, and it's just sort of, you know, I guess I still fight with it. I still fight with it. I still have people that are their intentions is try to dissolve my career or my credibility because of being a person with a big heart, being a humble person. That's the problem with our industry, is that on one hand, if you're too mean, depending on how you channel that, you could become filthy rich. On the other hand, you could be very nice and you end up in a gutter somewhere.
Yeah, you got to just figure out how to be yourself. And I think it's like that in any, to be honest, in any business and setting. You have to figure out how can I be myself, go home at night, look in the mirror, feel good about what I did today, and put up with the bullshit and survive. And it's a tough question. And I think it's one that you got to work on all the time.
Yeah, it really is, man.
Especially if you had a shitty background.
Yeah.
Because that stuff haunts you, and I know it. And you're always fixing that and trying to, you know, and the little voice here is always whispering to you when you least need them. And you got to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's right. When you're most vulnerable and you got to kick them back. Yeah, I get it, man.
You know, and you know, but the thing about it, I don't know how it is for you, but I know for a lot of kids, when we start with hip hop back in the early 80s, most of those kids came from kind of my background. So all of them were kind of you know, kind of disobedient, you know what I mean? Kind of rebellious.
Angry.
Yeah. So the great thing for me is that because of who I am, and kids look at me as hope.
Right.
The one that I have a fan base of kids.
Right.
Which is heavy for a 63-year-old man. That doesn't really exist. But kids look at me as an uncle or a father to them, that are the fans. And I embrace them like children in front of their parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'll sit there and I'll talk to them and tell them, hey, what I did, you could do better.
If you just do the work and believe.
Right. Because those two people right there, that's your parents, you got them.
Right.
I really didn't have that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean.
It's a different thing, you know? So, and then also too, kids always they just look at me and say, how do you understand what we're talking about? Because, you know, they have their own way of talking. I said, well, you know, I'm so diverse, you know, I produced hip hop, you know, I've been around some pretty heavy people, and you know, they keep me abreast of what's going on. I listen to how they talk, you know, and sure, I mean, you know, Webster's dictionary is not going to have definitions.
No, but if you put things in, if you're paying attention, listening, watching body language, and putting things into context, man, it's not like rocket science. If you come from that background in the first place.
Oh yeah, man. But
right.
even our background becomes sort of dated. I mean, you know, you know, it comes a point where you just kind of like go, what is that you're saying? What, I don't get that. You know, what is that? You know, especially now in trap music. I'm not talking about the music, but the language.
That's the hip hop out of Atlanta.
Yeah, or the trap music, the TI.
Yeah,
you know, they got another thing going on language wise. I mean, everybody can still communicate, but it's a whole nother level. It comes a point that you just say, okay, I've been a part of that. I understand that, but now it's gone somewhere else, and it's like, do I follow that, or I'm just too old, you know, to deal with it, you know? So, but you know, the thing is, as we've gone through, you know, my history, some of it it's that, you know, for most artists that are successful, they usually come from something to drive them. Something negative. You know what I mean? The problem is that everything that awaits them in success is the thing that kills them. Why do I say that? Because they all of a sudden, you go from having a how can I put it, a lifestyle where you live in a cracker box or one room. Now you're giving parties, and it's girls and record execs and all, you know, and you don't know, this is time you got to buckle down.
Man.
This is the time you have to remove yourself from all that.
They don't realize there's a shelf life of this.
It is. You're on a timer.
Right. And it's ticking. And
when that bell rings, it don't matter if you're ready or not. That's it.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Right, and that's the unfortunate thing. Is like, and the other thing is adapting and reinventing yourself. And remember, we were talking yesterday about that whole thing about how I, you know, listen to DJs, how I learned from DJs.
That was so smart.
You know what I mean? Because they're the ones that know about change more than anybody.
They know what's current. That's what you said.
Not only that, really they're part of creating that. They're you know, one of the things I will have to say is like, one of the best people that really helped me in all of this, other than my cousin Marshall, is Mike Hitman Wilson, who I wrote the #1 hit, "Don't Lose the Magic" for Shawn Christopher. He used to get crates delivered to him every week of the newest records, or remixes out of New York, you know. So we would sit down. Now I'm a musician, right? So we sit down and we just go through. And so I would say, hey man, that's gonna be a hit. He said, Mike said, that sucks. That's gonna be horrible. And more times he's right. More times than not, he's right.
Just because he's so immersed in what's trending.
So immersed. He's one of the guys. He's a famous remixer producer, you know, and you know, he took me under his wing. I mean, even when I went to clubs with him and just sat next to him, and it would be like 5 or 6 DJs. He said, one of these DJs are gonna bomb. He said, what's gonna happen, they're gonna play something and they're gonna clear the floor. I said, really? You said, watch. It's like he already knew it and knew who it was. And sure enough, the people, it was, you know, you're talking about 2,000-3,000 people dancing, losing their mind. This guy went and played one song and that whole floor was cleared.
Wow.
And he can't come back after that.
Yeah, right.
Is literally you just have to stop playing your songs and let the next DJ come in and DJ. So, you know, this is how I learned how to write dance music. This is how I learned that, you know, if you know how to make people dance, then you can do just about anything musically. But you have to understand it has to be something that makes you move and makes the person in front of you or the people in front of you move, you know. And when you know how to do that, that's when you know how to write hit records. You know.
Bill, I want to shift gears just for a minute and ask you about
Go ahead, please.
Other artists that you played with. Chet Baker, this is a guy, I saw a documentary about him. I had to stop watching it. It was so depressing. It was, I mean, this guy just was like an expert at ruining his life with drugs. I mean, just, he had a bad addiction. But what did you do with Chet? And like, when was that time? And what was your experience like?
Sometimes in the 80s, there was this vibe player, and I can't recall his name. He lived in Houston, Texas. And he flew me out. I'm trying to figure out how that worked, because I was with Chet for about 2 or 3 weeks. I didn't know who he was. And so I was a sort of a special guest because I was with Ramsey and playing with this five player. And Chet was one, you know, definitely the feature artist. Not until I did some research and the vibe player told me his history.
Yeah.
That's when I was like starstruck.
Right.
But he looked pretty bad. Even though he was dressed nice and everything, but I knew nothing about history.
He was a mess.
Right. But you have to understand something. The culture of all of those musicians that came from that era,
yeah,
including Miles, all of them came from that culture. It was like you when you're indulging in your creativity and not taking care of business. And we said this already, that you get screwed over. You also deal with the segregation of musicians that are sort of the ones that are part of the system and you're not. And Chet was kind of that guy. It was like he was kind of his life was kind of being juggled around, you know, like, you know, he should have been Tony Bennett to me.
Absolutely. I mean, he was so talented, and he was a nice guy, but he was an addict. I mean, he was a hardcore addict, man.
Oh yeah. And the thing about it, you have to understand, it's like the pain. See, that's the thing. It's like, one of them, just gonna bring this up, and I'm just gonna say this. Depression is the norm for most of these people. Not knowing they battle with it.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So most of them don't have anywhere to channel that or to get the help, because you got to remember, one, you're underpaid. Number two, you've been on drugs for most of your life. Number three, you basically kind of turn into a party animal. You know what I mean? And number four, your health goes down the drain.
Oh, his health was so bad, so I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, most of them. And you know, they, you know, with Chet, once he started playing and once he started singing, it all disappeared.
Yeah.
Now you're in the room with a genius.
Yeah.
you're in the room with somebody that sounds like nobody on planet Earth. Because when he sang,
especially singing, you don't have trumpeters singing.
He sang like he played.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it was just, you know, there's only been a few people that made me stop playing. I mean, just like, it was so incredible. I just literally dropped my hands just because it was just, I just couldn't believe what I was hearing and how it was emotionally affecting me, you know, that it was, I just could just well up and cry because I could feel this emotion of pain and rejection, and, you know, and that was Chet, you know, Chet can play a ballad and you could feel that this guy had went through something devastating.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, he could play something fast and it still sounds beautiful. Now, most people that play fast want to play chops.
Right.
He's still lyrical. He's still, you know what I mean? It's just sound, it's just a part of him. He doesn't struggle to find where the right notes go.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a natural thing.
So talented,
and the way he sang, I mean, it was just incredible. But again, like, you know, you get into the mismanagement. That's a big part of it too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, man. Even for modern day guys like, you know, like Johnny Winter, guitar player, you know, he was all the things you said, and he had mismanagement.
Phenomenal, man.
Yeah,
phenomenal. I mean, this will, you know, we go through an era like, you know, of so many great musicians. Unfortunately, I can count 2 or 3 musicians that are multi-millionaires, if not billionaires, musicians that became phenomenal businessmen. The music business is 99% business.
Yeah.
1% talent. That talent could be phenomenal. But if you don't understand 99%, you don't exist.
Yeah, it's very true.
Or you go through the system and the next thing you know, this person you saw on MTV, VH1, you see them walking around the street, pushing a cart, you know, and you just, you know, you being in the business, you just see things come across the table and situations and things that happen. You want to be emotionally connected to it, but you don't want to, because if you get in the middle of it, then if you start dealing with something that the record company industry does not want to deal with, it affects you. Even though you're trying to, you know, help that person getting back the check, you know, and the documentary, you know, it's like this. I always use Joe Jackson as sort of an example, but there still was a downfall at that.
Oh, big time.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, if any of these artists would have had Joe Jackson or a type like that, they would exist today.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that your father's going to be a father. Doesn't mean that your father is going to survive this. Yeah. Doesn't mean you may see something with mom and dad that you don't want to see. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you know, for most of the musicians that were famous musicians, they struggled. And you got to understand the other thing too is that most musicians that were instrumental musicians wanted to cross over. You know?
Yeah, very much.
I worked with Chuck Mangione, you know, and he crossed over. He was, you know, that one song he did, Feel Good, whatever it was, that crossed over.
Yeah.
Huge. It was huge,
yeah,
right?
It was every record, every channel.
You know, I played with Grover Washington. He's nicer than me. He was nicer than me. He was like, I mean, I can't express how nice Grover Washington was as a person, as a human being. Mr. Magic and Just the Two of Us.
Right.
Those are pop hits, you know? And Grover, he was a rarity. No drugs, no nothing, very clean cut, spoke very well. I mean, eloquent, just incredible. And to play with them was like playing with one of my friends when I was like a kid. It's like, you know, we get up there and jam, you know, he sat in with us, sat in with RAMSEY, and we couldn't stop the song. It just kept going and going.
That's cool. So he's just super passionate about music like he was when he was first started.
Yeah, man, super passionate, and just super passionate about, you know, caring about people, you know. Like I said, you know, a lot of musicians come from neglect early on in life.
Yeah.
And the instrument and the music takes them away from that.
Right.
But we don't have institutions to teach the kids about the business. And the laws in the business change every day.
Yeah.
You know, the best thing about our music, the best thing that ever happened was hip hop, because hip hop came from the streets. It became successful on the streets. And so by the time the execs got to that, they had already been going, you know, they already had platinum albums.
Yeah.
So basically the hip hop artists or producers made distribution deals with the labels. And then all of a sudden, you know, they got into the same thing that the athletes got into, which was endorsements.
Endorsements, yes.
You know, and branding themselves, you know. And that, you know, and then you see Jay-Z, a billionaire, you see 50 Cent, a billionaire, you know, you see all of these artists, and I'm looking at musicians like, you don't get this, you know. That's why, you know, when Victor and his brothers gave me the name Bill the Buddha Dickens, I said, well, that's, you know what, I'm gonna turn that into a brand. You know what I mean? It's not just a name. We're gonna turn it into a brand. So, you know, I have my own signature bassist. I was one of the first African Americans to have his own bassist, you know, in Guitar Center and Sam Ash.
Are you kidding?
You know, signature. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, you go in a store, you know, and you see all rock guys. So the day I walked into a Guitar Center and looked at and saw my bass in the middle of all of these well-known rock guys, and it was a 7-string. And
yeah, that had to feel pretty good.
Oh my, well, I felt good for culture. I felt good for the millions of people that get rejected. I felt
I understand. Yeah,
right.
I understand where you're coming. It wasn't like good for you. It was like, hey man, I'm pushing us forward a little bit. I'm putting my stake in the ground, and hopefully many more will come after that.
That's exactly
it. I totally get it, man.
It did come, man. And the other thing was nobody knew who I was in Guitar Center. That was even better. So I could come in and say, you know, it just actually happened. I went in there and said, hey, can I try that bass out, man?
That Bill Dickens bass.
Yeah, right.
That's great, man.
You know, just like, yeah, man. He said, we just got these in, man. This cat's supposed to be a monster. The guy didn't even know who I was.
Great. Right?
So I'm just like, just sitting there, just like this, just like, oh, cool. Like, I'm acting like I don't know who Bill Dickens is. I just want to try the bass, right? So I get the bass, and the guy said, here, it's good, try it out. He walks away, and all of a sudden they hear this.
You did your thing. Yeah.
Yes. And everybody in the store, including the manager, walks over there and says, who are you?
That's great, man.
And I just kind of just smiled and I said, look at the headstock on the bass.
That's great.
That's who's sitting right here.
That's so cool. But that had to feel good though. Like I'm happy you got to experience it. That's a good thing, man.
Yeah, it felt like I feel like this. I just feel like I'm kind of like the the quarterback for my generation and many generations. And that has nothing to do with color. That just has something to do with being able to go against the grain where people say you couldn't do it constantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great.
Just be able to just sit there and not be noticed. That's the coolest thing in the world.
That is really cool because, yeah, having that anonymity in that situation where, because you would have been treated differently if they knew you were Bill Dickens.
It happens both ways. It does. I mean, I get both sides, but I love it the best when I can just walk in somewhere and just not be noticed. You know, just be this guy just like sitting in the corner somewhere, and it's like, you know, they don't really know who I am. Or if I'm getting ready to do a concert or something like that, you know, I know, you know, more times than not, they'll call my name and everybody go crazy. But it's like, it's just the coolest thing where you can be in a situation and people look at you and say, wait a minute, is this the famous Bill Dickens? Just acts like a normal person. He's so passe. He don't really even talk about the music side. He just, he cares about people. He cares about the average person, you know? I've had conversations with homeless people.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with homeless people that were musicians. You know, it's like, I just feel that my gift is to be a vessel for hope, for people, and in my music, and it's personal, you know.
I want to ask you about two guitar players that you've worked with.
Okay.
Both incredibly talented and both incredibly different. Steve Morse. What did you do with Steve? How did that come about? When did that happen?
How did it come about? You know, it's so hard to remember all these things. You see, it was back in my days when I was endorsing Ampeg. Somehow I was at the NAMM show.
Okay.
And I don't know how it all quite came together with Steve and I. It was a couple of times we played together. The one thing I do remember the most is playing with Steve Morse and Jeff Berlin together.
Oh, that's cool. Well, you know, one thing about Morse, he's totally opposite. Like, for example, Chet Baker, he's like, he lives down here. He's totally clean cut. I don't think he's ever done drugs, at least not as a musician. That's not his thing. He's disciplined. He doesn't stop working. He plays all the time. He practices all the time. You know, the bus breaks down. He's the guy under the bus fixing it. He's like, you know, MacGyver, apparently.
Well, you know, the funny thing, when I met Steve, he had long hair.
Okay, right.
So it was like total 360 degrees the opposite. It was like, you know, kind of almost hippie-ish to me.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You know, before you know, he got what's the band he's in now?
Deep Purple. Yeah, he's in Deep Purple. He's in the Dixie Dregs. Yeah,
that's right. Yep. And I recorded with the drummer from the Dixie Dregs, and
Rod was it Morgan?
Morgenstein was
Morgenstein, yeah, or Morgenstern, something like that. Yeah.
And but the whole thing with Steve Morse and I was just kind of
both like super talented, man. That must have been a pretty good jam.
It was incredible. But you know, again, it's kind of like, even for Steve, you know, when he saw me start playing this 5/10 technique, I mean, I remember, you know, this was when Jeff and all three of us were jamming and playing together. I went into that whole thing, and they literally just both looked over and their mouths dropped. You know,
dude, nobody does that. You know that. It's like super. It's not of this earth, man. You're like,
no. And so that thing with Steve Morse was like, you know, one of those moments where you just feel like, oh my God, what's going to happen from this? Maybe I'll join the Dreads. Maybe
you should be in the Dregs.
You know, I probably was. No, Andy West and I are good friends, but you know,
I'm just talking about talent wise.
Right. I know I would have loved it. You know, I opened for Allan Holdsworth. That's another guy. I opened for him with a group. His name Proteus.
Okay, I had that on here. So this is a prog rock band.
Yeah.
In the early 80s, Proteus, and you did this record with them called we did one song. Infinite Change is the record. The song is Dance of the Moon Children.
That's right.
Holy shit. I've never heard anything like that.
That's right.
And I bet nobody knows you've done a prog rock record.
No.
What was up? What happened with that band? And like, I know you got asked I think they brought you in. I read it for like just this track or something.
Yeah, just that track. And then we did a show. I think it was Tuts. I think that's what it's called. It was in Chicago on Belmont Street. And we opened for Allan Holdsworth.
Okay.
And I was on the ticket as a special guest.
Okay.
And so long story short, we came out and did our show, and then they gave me a feature,
right,
to do something kind of like by myself. You know, I'm out there just doing the thumb stuff and just grooving, and then I went into this overdrive of speed, and you know, still in the groove. Allan Holdsworth comes out of his dressing room, standing next to the stage. He's practicing, and he's looking at me with this deep stare. It's deep, you know, because it's like, for him, it was like he never heard anything like that.
Nobody's heard this.
You know what I'm saying? And then Jeff Berlin came out. So after I got through with my solo, you know, the whole room just exploded, you know? And so what happened with Allan, they came out, and matter of fact, here's something for you. That's when Allan was signed to Warner Brothers, and you know, Eddie Van Halen got him that deal.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, Eddie Van Halen took Allan Holdsworth under his wing, and he got him the record deal with Warner Brothers. So they were touring for Road Games, that album.
Okay.
And so what happened, they came out, and I think they did the first two tunes, and all the electricity went out in the building. So after what we did, and they, you know, gave me my feature, they got the electricity back on, and they started playing it. They sounded it. Incredible is understatement. There's just, what do you say about Allan Holdsworth? You know,
nothing.
he
nothing you can say.
Just you know, I was in the daze, you know, and then Jeff Berlin came out, and he was doing his getting ready to do his solo, and he said, don't expect me to do anything like what Billy Dickens just did.
He could, yeah, he
just said, look, this is what I do, which is fine, you know, phenomenal. He said, but don't expect me. This is what I do.
The fact that he had to say that, that's pretty.
Well, it happened twice. It happened with Darryl Jones. It happened with Jeff Berlin, both of them, you know. And you know, again, it's like I've been around, you know, guitar players. I mean, like now I play with the incredible Leo Nocentelli.
Leo Nocentelli, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about next. Yes,
you know, the Meters, Sissy Strut, and all the most sampled band other than James Brown. You know, Leo's one of my close, dearest friends. You know, other guy is the great Carlos Johnson, award-winning guitarist from Chicago, who I work with also. These guys are, you know, you hear the term headhunters. Those are headhunter guitar players. Those are guitar players you do not put another guitar player nowhere close to them. You're going to get your head peeled off.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
That's just, you know, that's it. I mean, you know, Leo is going to peel your head off. And that's why we play together, because we're kind of both the same. We're both Geminis. We're both kind of have this, you know, it's two people in the room, so it's four people in the room.
Yeah, right. Geminis are like that, split personality.
And we just kind of like, you know, it's like bring the challenge on. That's how we are. We're, you know, it's like two boxers that can't knock each other out.
Right. It's a great analogy. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's like two boxers that can't knock each other out. That's how it is with Leo and I. It's the same thing with Carlos and myself. It's just, you know, but go ahead.
Please. It came to mind another bass player that's got just a lovely guy who's a great player. Do you know Jimmy Haslett?
Oh yes,
He's such a nice guy. It's just he's around, he's just a sweetheart, man.
Very, and one of the few people I see play left-handed with the strings still strung the same way.
Yeah.
Handed and play all of the stuff. It's kind of like, my brain isn't wired that way. So when I watch Jimmy play, I close my eyes.
Well, anybody playing lefty, it's really hard.
Look, man. Look, man. There's a guy named Jimmy Allen.
Uh-huh.
And the thing that's great about this interview is that I'm mentioning some people that you never heard of, but when they hear their names, they feel so appreciated. Cool. Jimmy Allen I look at him as like a Jaco Pastorius, far as tone, far as approach. A phenomenal bassist. But what Jimmy Allen does is he plays both ways, and
lefty and right-handed.
Yes, and he have the bassist set up that way.
How the hell does he do that?
So if he's playing, I think this, lefty is with his fingers, the other way is with his thumb. But one bass is fretted and one bass is fretless.
Is he a session player or is he with a band?
Oh yeah, he was a session player. He was with a band called Returning Khalif. He played with Joe Sample for a while. And then I think he lives in Canada now and with his wife. And I consider him one of my bass heroes. I love Jimmy Allen. Love him. But when I watch him play and he does that, I have to close my eyes. Yeah. I can't watch it. My brain ain't wired that way. But Jimmy Haslett,
he plays like a 6 or 7 string as well at times.
He plays a 6 upside down.
Yeah.
One of the most lyrical bass players, and it was a very hard groover. I love the earlier days of the Yellow Jackets with him and the late Ricky Lawson.
Yeah, him and Ricky Lawson. Yeah.
You mentioned Jimmy Haslett. You're talking one of the greatest bass players around, man. I mean, I give respect where respect is due.
He's just a lovely human being as well.
And then you can tell that is part of his reason why he plays the way he do. He cares about the music and people.
Yeah, he really does.
Yeah. And
from the Bronx, by the way.
No, get out of here, man.
Oh, he is, man. He's from the Bronx.
What's going on with you guys in the Bronx, man? I can get in the cab. They drop stuff in a freaking war zone and say,
you need the secret handshake, man. That's it.
Yeah, they said, I'm gonna watch you die. Oh man. Take me through the hood, man. Hey, man. Something with the Bronx, man. Something with y'all and the doggone hip hop. Taking a Shure PA into a basketball court, man. Come on. That you guys, I really think that it would be great to do a documentary on the Bronx as far as the culture, because it's so many heavyweights that come from the Bronx.
Oh, musicians, just performers in general, yeah,
right. And not only musicians, but you have to understand that in from the beginning of this conversation about when we talked about my writing and where I had to do basically take all of my emotions and write it down on paper. That was really the biggest part of the whole hip hop culture, was writing down their emotions.
Yeah.
Because it was not easy to grow up in the Bronx. It was not easy. You got Brooklyn, you got other adjoining, neighborhoods, and it was everybody saw things and lived through things that they shouldn't have had to deal with. You know what I mean?
The problem with growing up there for the most part is there's nobody to inspire you. So you just assume, okay, my life's going to be really shitty. I'm going to go to work and have 1 or 2 jobs. I'm going to come home to this shitty apartment. I'm going to, there's not a lot of optimism there. That's the biggest, and that's why I left. And I knew I wanted to get the hell out of there.
Right. But there's also the side too. That's what makes you driven to get to the top of your
100%.
Not only in music, but in sports, in politics. I mean, you just, so many people come from the Bronx and they kind of say it as a, you know, sort of like soft, like, hey, I'm from the Bronx. So like, man, speak out, man. That's love, man. Just speak it out, man. You know, it's nothing to hold, man. You know, I mean, it's, you know, some of the greatest, man. Some of the greatest hip hop artists have come out of the Bronx. Just some musicians that come out of the Bronx, man. I mean, you know, it's just that a lot of times, you know, when you got these heavyweights, man, they coming out of the Bronx as hip hop artists, it's hard to for them to define their lifestyle from the lyric content.
That's because their identity is very much tied to that.
Yep.
So,
yep.
All right. After you were with RAMSEY Lewis for around 8 years, I believe, you kind of felt you were at like a fork in the road, that you'd reached your peak as a bass player. So you decided to get into production and songwriting, which you had clearly been doing a lot of, especially the songwriting successfully for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
To do that, you basically took 2 years and immersed yourself in nothing but those things. So my question is, what kind of woodshedding did you do to get proficient at production? Because now you've succeeded at probably.
Well, the thing that happened was I was offered a job by a guy that his name was Tal Anderson, and the other guy was Mike Hensley. They built a studio, and it was like a $5 million studio in a brand new bank building in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, called AD Studio. So Tal called me and said, hey man, we have this beautiful studio downtown. How would you like to come down, check it out, and you know, become the house producer for our studio? And I said, well, let me take a look at it. I thought it was like, you know, just a studio in a little building somewhere, you know, tiny studio, something like that. So I get down there and I see this big new building in the middle of downtown Milwaukee. And I went up to security when I went in the building, and I said, where's AD Studio? He said, it's on the 17th floor. I said, could you give me the room? He said, it's the 17th floor. What do you mean, the whole entire floor? He said, yes. So I went upstairs and I was in disbelief. I went into the room and met up with Tal and Mike and Dan. Dan was my engineer at that time. Oh, am I getting it wrong? David Hensley. So the room, the blueprint was designed by Bruce Swedien. And so we're going to this $5 million studio, and I'm in disbelief. I'm just in disbelief. We got a Flying V Neve. We had $300,000 worth of outboard gear. The room was it was immaculate. It was incredible, man. And then Tal took me into this other room, and I saw all these keyboards and stacks and stacks and stacks of, you know, keyboard modules and all this stuff, and Pro Tools and all this stuff. And I said, wow, man, this is incredible. He said, this is your room. I said, you crazy? He said, this is your room. So long story short, I had a gig with RAMSEY, and I told RAMSEY that I had to go away for a minute because I was getting ready to start a job as a house producer for a studio. I said, I'll be back in a couple of weeks. And he said, no, that ain't gonna fly. So he said, I'm gonna miss you. I said, it was fine by me. Yeah, right, that's how we ended it. And so how did I get all that sharpen my tools? I was kind of thrown into it all. You know, I mean, you know, thank God I had Dave and Mike and Tal there to assist me and help me learn everything. But my first client, paid me $125,000 to do a whole project.
That's a good omen.
So you go figure, you go make
you know, less than 30, 40,000, and you jump up to this thing, you know, and then next thing you know, we having major projects in the studio. Cheap Trick locked out the studio for 3 months, and almost got a song on their second album. I mean, the album after The Flame, after the big album. And unfortunately, management blocked that, you know, but Rick would always peek in the room when I was working on this one particular track. And he said, make the guitar just like dive a little bit more, man.
How did these guys call you? Like, what prompted these guys to call you? Did they know you were looking to get involved?
No. We Ramsey performed at Tal's father's house, which was in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, and it was a mansion. I think he had like 10 or 15 car garages, all custom cars, and you know, everybody. He made windshields for like GM and, you know, all the big car dealers. So I mean, from, you know, I'm kind of speculating, but his company earned 200 million a year.
The company,
the company, right? And so everybody that came to the concert, they didn't come in cars, because in his backyard was like a 2-mile long and 3-mile wide lake. So everybody came to the party in their boats.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then I met Tal, who was the guy, Mr. Anderson's son, and we just got to talking, you know, and we were both interested in keyboards and sequencing and that sort of thing, and you know, became good friends, which was kind of an odd thing, but you know, our friendship, you know, went on after I did the concert there, and that's how it all came about. He called me and, you know, gave me the offer, and that was it.
That's funny how Ramsey basically was the connection for that, and then he was the disconnection.
It says 100%.
Yeah, that's really funny how things work. I know you're a spiritual guy, so when stuff like that happens, do you look at it that God or your higher power or whatever is looking after you, or how do you frame stuff like, or do you just say serendipity?
It was kind of like you know, I always to this very day, I always know that God has been watching out for me. I mean, even when I have something huge and successful happen to me, you know, I never look at the situation itself. I always look at God created this, and this was the blessing that he gave me, and you know, and that's what really keeps me going. But that situation, yes, I do believe it was God. And I also believe that there was, you know, Ramsey and I had basically were parting ways kind of in a spiritual way anyway. You know, I co-produced his last album, and there was some things that kind of went bad on their part, and it was never taken care of as far as the business aspect of, and so you know,
they didn't give you credits. When this happens all the time. I don't.
Oh no, I got everything. I got credit.
Good.
I got writing credit. I got publishing.
Good.
You know, but there was like, you know, there was a lot of people down the record that, you know, of course, didn't get paid, that kind of thing at that time. You know, unfortunately, those things happen. You know,
all the time.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's you know, when you're not the sole producer and don't have the money on, you know, the money for the record, and you have to work like as a third party, or you know, you're just kind of like there's maybe one or two people ahead of you that's taking care of the stuff, business. Sure. You know, you kind of like, you're kind of, you know, you're out of the loop with that, you know what I mean? And that happens all the time. I mean, the problem is that you got to have a team of people that work with you, even down to the people, you have people that will take care of the credits, you know, on the album.
Sure.
A lot of times you'll turn that in, but the follow through, there's no follow through. Sometimes you may forget, you know.
Yeah.
Those things happen. And, you know, as far as the writing and that sort of thing, I mean, you know, you have to stand for what you believe in. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, if you write a song for an artist and you say, well, you know, I can't split the publishing with you, and the artist says, well, you know, depending on how you know how much pressure he's under, they may say, well, pass on the song, or they say, well, you got to give me something, and say, well, you know, or if you're in a position where you can say, well, I got this other artist that wants it right now.
Right.
That's usually the thing that clinches the deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and at that point, I mean, I told Ramsey, you know, we all recorded everything. The record was coming out, you know, we had negotiated no publishing. And I just told him that nicely that I'm keeping all my publishing. And he said, okay.
Good for you. But if you had not said that, it probably wouldn't have happened.
That wouldn't happen because the first record I wrote for, I didn't get any publishing.
I hate hearing that, but I hear it all the time.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Just the nature of the beast here, man.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's all about selling catalog, you know, and when you don't understand that aspect of the business where you know, you get enough songs placed and you can sell your catalog, you know, depending on how big it is. Sometimes you can have just, you know, several #1 hits on there, and then have, you know, 100 songs. In some cases, that stuff can be sold for like $100 million.
Yeah.
Depending on who negotiates it for you.
I was watching this movie, the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young movie, and it was like a dysfunctional relationship they had, but they all got back together at one point, and the interviewer was asking Neil Young, he goes, how come you're only playing your songs at this show? He goes, because I'm the only one with new songs. He who has the songs has the currency.
That's
and
right.
It's so true, man. You know, the songs are currency in this business. That's exactly right.
That's right. That's right.
So you just put the pedal to the metal for 2 years, and then you applied the same work ethic that you applied to doing everything else in music, and you're able to come out success and continue on that line.
That's right.
That's
and
awesome.
Yeah, for me and focus, I think the bass was in my way because I didn't, you know, when you become a production manager, you have a lot of hats you have to wear. So I knew then that the fork in the road was like, if you practice on your bass, you're gonna kind of do a half-ass job of taking care of the business, you know. And so I said, you know what? This is a good time to part with it. And the other thing too, because I had a 6-string bass, and, you know, I was watching a couple other people I knew, and I, you know, was good friends with, saw their careers just take off and bloom. And I said, well, you know, I'm not just going to go back to playing local. I said, this is a great opportunity. And if I never pick the bass up again, and this is what my career is, I'll be fine. You know, I think that the bass is like, you know, when you get to a point in life, when you decide what you want to do, you want to be a great bass player, a soloist, you know, you have to be in a group. It's hard to just be out there like that. Every major bass player, from Stanley Clarke to Marcus Miller to Victor Wooten, you know, even Billy Sheehan, everybody came from a group.
Yeah.
You know? And for me, Ramsey's not considered a group. He called it the trio, but it was not. It was all about him. 100%.
It was, yeah. He was the people were coming to see him. They weren't coming to see.
Right. They wasn't.
Yeah. They did.
Yeah. And even though I got a lot of press, but at the end of the day, it was really, the focus was on him. He's the guy that's been doing it long before I was even born. You know.
Totally.
And so, you know, but he saw my gift and my talent, and he took me under his wing, and, you know, he put me in that position to write songs. I mean, one time I got the gig, he asked me if I could write. I said, yeah.
Yeah, the next night, I remember.
And that's it. You know, I went in his basement, wrote the first song, and when the bass, you know, after I played him the first song, he said, go back, you know. And then I wrote the single, I Can't Wait, with him and Frank Donaldson. That was the first time I heard myself on radio, you know, especially R&B radio. You know, I heard myself soloing, and, you know, at that time, I think we went through Scorpio, which was Bob Abbott, and Shake Your Booty at the Disco, which was the Gap Band, Robert Wilson, Bootsy Collins. That's all 70s stuff. So
Yeah.
like 82, 83 was me by myself.
Well, I give you credit for reaching that. Change is tough for most people.
Yeah,
it is, but I give you credit for doing that, because it's not, you saw a path, or you had peace with it. And so you were good either way, which was nice.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's, it was like the biggest burden for me was not having a vehicle, and I've seen some of my peers that are, phenomenal players go through that sort of transition and go into a dark moment in their life. And, some come out okay and some don't, some come out and they've been scarred, for the rest of their life, but for me, I just said, you know what? I think it's necessary that I put this thing away. I've been playing it since I was 3 years old, the bass. So, I mean, if I need to pick it up to play on a pop song, it ain't like I gotta have chops, just.
Yeah, well, you had ample chops to play.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. And like I said, Ramsey called me 2 years later, almost 2 years later, and asked, if I could do a gig. And by the time I had already signed a $250,000 deal with MCA Records. And so I told him what was happening. I said, I just came off of a #1 Billboard hit. We were over Michael Jackson on the dance charts and pretty high on the Billboard charts. And so he asked me, he said, what kind of money would you want? I said, I don't want your money. That was my answer. I mean, because I realized that I was doing something else that was, I mean, I don't want to call it in another league, but it was like, pop music and jazz. It's two different worlds financially.
Yeah, financially, of course. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could. What was the #1 single that was over?
It was called Don't Lose the Magic. Next year will be the 30th anniversary for that song. And we are actually,
the woman, the artist?
Shawn Christopher.
Yeah, right.
Yep. And it will be it'll be put out again next year. And I'm really looking forward to that. Right now, I'm working on the first #1 single Shawn and Mike Hitman Wilson had, which is Another Sleepless Night. I actually replayed all the keyboard parts on that and played live bass on it. Because what's happening now, like the single I have out now with my cousin Marshall Jefferson, called "Music Saved My Life." That song is all live musicians, and it sounds just like Bernard Edwards.
It's a good track. It's a fun.
Yeah,
it's like old school. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, you don't hear that kind of stuff nowadays. But that's kind of where the industry is going, which is great.
Yeah, that is
I love
good.
it.
At least some genres moving in the right direction.
Yeah, you could pick up your guitar again. I could pick up my bass and be taken seriously. Especially in the pop arenas. It's great. The industry is kind of looking towards that. It's like that's the next wave. And I think it's great.
Congratulations for making all that, making all those moves that led you to that path.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it, man. I mean, one of my big heroes is Marcus Miller. Not as the bass player. We all know who he is.
Sure.
But Marcus Miller was kind of like the guy I listened to, not for the bass so much, but his production work was incredible. And he was the only cat that I knew, and I put myself in a small way in there with him, that was playing bass and synth bass on records where he played the bass guitar along with the synth bass that a track he laid down. He was the only one doing that on a major scale. I did some stuff like that, but he did it on a major scale with all the Luther Vandross stuff, So nobody was doing it because electronic.
It's like the New York crew sticking together, the Chicago crew sticks together.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, man. Every time I hang out, I call Marcus up if he's in town, and if you would hear us talk, it sounds like we're getting ready to get in a fight, but it's just, he comes from New York and I come from Chicago. So, both of them are kind of edgy,
Yeah. Yeah. He went to high school of music and art, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
I used to see him in clubs when he was in high school and just out of high school. Yeah. In fact, I went to school upstate New York for a very short time and he played in a club up there. I remember. And I talked to him because I had buddies who we went to school with at music and art.
Oh, okay.
Long time ago.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, man. When I won my award at the NAMM show, we did a little interview about what he thought about me and that sort of thing. He was kind of clowning as usual, but he said some things really nice about me that I was quite surprised. That was kind of a awkward situation for me because as long as I've been knowing Marcus, he's never really said anything about me.
Yeah, you told me he hung up on you last night. Yeah, I got one of these basses. Good.
I got Anthony Jackson's 6-string bass, man. He said cool and hung up, man. Yeah. I was like, that's that New York thing, man.
That's cold, man. That's
yeah, man.
Yeah, you're gonna be butthurt after that, man.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you. I know there's been a couple of people that have been really critical and important to your career. Let's talk about them. Tristan Grigsby.
Tristan Grigsby is like one of my dearest friends. Tristan Grigsby was a guy that I had met actually at a clinic at Guitar Center, and they put us both together to do some kind of performance there for Guitar Center. And when I heard him play, it was like, wait a minute, this guy doesn't play funk music. He's playing heavy metal. And I was like, what? And he was playing it very well, extremely well. As a matter of fact, he's the first black guitar player that I had ever heard or
play that not like hard rock, heavy metal.
Heavy metal. Yeah, he is So so I became friends with him, and then he asked me to play on his first album, which was Project Storm, which was featuring Vernon Reid and the drummer from the Dixie Dregs, and
Rod Morgan.
Yeah, Rod. Because I could forget. Yes, right. And then T.M. Stevens.
Okay.
And so I did that, and long story short, there was a couple companies that I did some work for. One was Kramer, and then the other company I endorsed was Harkey. So Kramer did some kind of promotion show with Eddie Van Halen, Gene Simmons, and a couple other big rock guys. So my friend Bob Davis was working for the company at the time, and so he at that time when he's working there, his boss asked him, "Hey, would you like to work on this show we're doing with Eddie Van Halen and Gene Simmons?" And he said, "Yeah." So he said, "You want to meet Eddie?" He said, "Eddie's here," And so he took Eddie to the. He took Bob to this room where Eddie was watching a video. Video happened to be me.
Oh,
and so
how weird is that?
Yeah. So he walks in the room, and Eddie is kind of like looking at the video, and he said, "Hey man," he said, "You from Chicago?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm from Chicago." He said, "Who in the fuck is Bill Dickens?" Excuse me.
That's awesome.
and so The second time was Van Halen came to Chicago, and they performed at the Rosemont Horizon, which is a, 30,000 seater. So my friend Tristan called me and said, "Hey man, you want to go down and see Van Halen?" I said, "Yeah." He said, I'm calling management now." So I'm figuring, okay, well, I'll probably just go and sit way in the back somewhere. And so when I get the call back, he says, Eddie is giving you an all access VIP pass and he wants to see you. I said, "What?" And so,
Who
you
the
know,
fuck is
I'm trying
Bill
to just,
Dickens?
trying to make it short and sweet because I forgot the second half, but I'll tell you that after I'm done with it. So basically, I went to see the show. The show was great. Was able to walk all over the place, and the one place I really hung out at is with the roadies. On the side of the stage, so I got a chance to see Eddie's entire setup, which was a bunch of old MXR, pedals, a lot of, vintage stuff. But then I saw like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 of those PV signature heads he had. And the tops of the heads, they weren't on the heads. Also, these gigantic tubes sticking out of these heads. I had never seen tubes that big before. But he had some kind of switching system. But it was incredible, man. It was incredible. So, and then after the show, I met up with Michael Anthony and met his family. I've been good friends with Michael Anthony for a number of years. And then went into Eddie's room and waited there with Tristan, and Eddie came in and he looked at me, he says, "I know all about you." He said, I said, "Every interview, anything you've done, I got it. I know everything about you." And we talked, almost 2 hours about me, which I was in shock. I just was in shock. So the other part of the story is that also when I was endorsing Harkey, Larry Harkey told me, I think it was either Ron Lorman and Larry Harkey told me a story about they were at this party and there was a lot of stars there, and so upstairs from the party there was another room, and I think I want to say Larry went upstairs, and people went upstairs, and they heard all the screaming. And so when they opened up the door, they saw Rod Stewart on one side and Eddie Van Halen's on the other side. And Eddie is saying, "This Bill Dickens is killing Jaco. He's killing him." And it was from my clinic that I did with Jaco Pastorius. So that was the other part of the story, kind of locked everything together, which I didn't realize that Eddie, even remember that. I just thought I was the fly on the wall. It was like this thing of I'm a little guy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. And I've had some people that had encounters with him. Everybody said he was a very easygoing, very nice, sweet guy.
The coolest person, man.
Yeah.
I mean, for me to sit there and the crazy thing, I think he had just had the hip replacement surgery. So he was walking with a cane when I saw him. He could barely walk.
Wow.
Yep.
That's pretty cool, Bill Dickens.
Thank you.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you.
Low points. What were some low points or dark periods you've had to deal with, and how'd you get through them?
I mean, that's kind of an ongoing thing in life with me. I think because the low point for me is being a 7-string bass player is it's not well received, especially by guitar players, unfortunately.
There's a lot of haters. What is it like? Why do people care?
Well, because anything above the 6 strings of the guitar becomes a threat, because guitar players, and I'm not saying everybody, but it's kind of like the general thing. It's like, guitar players don't like bass players to get into their register or to be playing chords or to be, And a lot of times that spills into the, like, you're trying to get the major gigs and that sort of thing. You know, you have some of those kind of guys. There may be, some of them may be the MD, you know, some of them may be the connection to the MD, you know what I mean? So you get a lot of slack like that. And then, you know, the other thing too is that, you know, if you play anything above 5 strings, people will think, oh, he isn't going to play a groove. He's just going to sit there and just solo and play chops on it, you know. So, you know, I've been hit with those things over the years. So how do I deal with them? Well, I guess I'll put it to you this way. Emotionally, it's very hard. It was very hard because it was a low point for me that, you know, because of the internet, and I was, you know, I come from a different generation.
Sure.
So when I got back into playing, you know, the internet had just started to flourish, and all of a sudden I get all these, you know, kids throwing like hate messages at me, and about, you know, any video I put out, it'll be tons and tons of just negative stuff.
I don't even understand that. It's music. Like, just
they don't get that. They don't
turn the channel if you don't. I don't.
Yeah,
you know, like,
that's what I would think. Go listen to your favorite artist, you know. But it took probably several years for that to stop. So, you know, part of, you know, dealing with that is that I had to deal with feeling rejected from the community.
Sure.
And from these haters. So again, that's where I reached out to God, because at the point I was at my lowest, I was thinking again that maybe I made a mistake coming back and playing again, and let's put this thing, sell it, let's get rid of it, and just be a producer, you know, because I play keyboards and I arrange and I'm a vocal coach, and you know, that's fine for me. But I kept at it, and I had to go through, you know, a lot of those times. So yeah, I mean, I think there was times where, you know, I didn't have any gigs for a while, you know, and I hear these rumors, and then I get the stuff over the internet. So it was like a very dark time for me, you know. Yeah. So
that's crazy, man. I mean, you know, this is the problem with the internet. People say things on there that if they would look you in the eye, like sitting across that, nobody would ever say that to you or anybody else.
I would love for them to say it to my face, because I said, okay, well, here's my bass.
Yeah.
I need inspire me, you know, I mean, to show me what you can do to make this better. Yeah. If you can't, then what are you talking about? You know?
I know. And, you know, as far as criticism goes, I've observed, people higher than you on the food chain will never criticize you. They'll always give you a hand up and say, hey, man, I know what it takes. I know what you're doing here. Let me help you. It's the people under you in the food chain that are just, I don't know if it's envy or jealousy or what.
It is 100%. I mean, you know, when you're out there I mean, you know, I don't consider myself the only 7-string bass player, but I do consider myself as the most successful and most exposed one of all of the multi-string bass players. I mean, of course, Anthony Jackson is like the godfather of this, you know, extended range bass thing. So I just think that, you know, when you deal with local people and they see that you're high profile, you go in music stores, you see my videos everywhere, you see my basses everywhere, you know, and you don't see too many African Americans in these major stores like that, and they were playing my videos, you know, all day long. I mean, that's how the guitar player from Living Color, Vernon Reed, discovered me.
Oh, he saw you.
And Nathan East discovered me. They, you know, I think both of them, I think both of them were at Manny's Music. Downtown, there was a crowd of people like around this TV, and they went over there to see who it was, and they saw it was me, and they were just as stung as everybody else, you know? Yeah. So, you know, I think if you're not, again, the problem is if you seem to sound like something out of the ordinary, if Jaco didn't have, excuse me, Weather Report, I think he would still be successful, but Weather Report took him over the top.
Yes.
Because he molded and shaped Weather Report sort of into this sort of like jazz pop act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, Jaco got, you know, they put Flower on the floor and Jaco's doing the James Brown barefooted, you know what I mean? And playing the most amazing stuff that nobody's ever heard before. But still, I mean, again, you got to have a platform like that.
Yeah.
I think my dark times came from like picking the bass back up and not having anywhere to go to play because I had been away from it for a while, you know.
Yeah, I don't understand all this stuff I don't understand taking the energy to do that, to criticize. It's just so easy, man. Just change the channel.
You know, thousands. I mean, you know, thousands. One of my friends told me, they said, be glad that they talk about you. You're worried if they don't talk about you.
Yeah, I guess. Right. But I can understand that, like, you're doing something new and innovative and you've worked. The problem is people don't realize the work it takes to get to the level that you're at.
They
and
don't.
The sacrifice and the blood, sweat, and tears.
That's right.
So, I mean, I get it, man. And then you're up there killing it, and then you're getting hammered by someone who's like,
and
never played a gig outside of their bedroom or something.
You know, if I think about it, if I had never came back, I would have never had a website that has over 6 million viewers.
Right.
I would never have videos out that, you know, some of them up to 1 million or something, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you have to, you know, be grateful and thankful that there are certain things that happen to you. I would have never got my award from NAMM.
Right.
You know, I would have never, you know, been on these huge records that I've been on, you know, if I hadn't come back to playing.
Right. So you got to look at it as a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Both. I feel you, man.
Absolutely.
Well, it's good that you came back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tuition. We all pay tuition in our careers. And I was wondering if you might be kind enough to share 1 or 2 mistakes you'd made along your journey, and what were the lessons you learned from that?
Mistakes you learn. Well, one was, you know, learning about the business. Like, you know, when I went through the you know, co-producing the last RAMSEY album, the things I had to deal with there, you know, I had to learn about the business. That's the other reason why, part of the reason I also quit playing, was to learn about the business and to start to, you know, rub shoulders with people in the business rather than the, you know, the musical aspect of the music business, you know. So that was one of the things I had to rebuild myself, because I was totally ignorant to that, because I was, you know, working on my craft, and the craft is only 1% of the 99% of the music business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially when you get on the other side, you know, you know, you're dealing with people that don't care about music so much. They just care about, can we recoup this money? And, you know, whatever we invest into this artist, we have to recoup that and then double that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, you know, I had to learn that side of the business, learning about points and licensing and, you know, and negotiating deals. And, you know, it's a whole nother aspect to it.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very common thing when people, one of the number one answers to that is I learned the business, you know, baptism by fire. I learned it the hard way.
That's right.
You know, and
you see a lot of the famous rock groups, you know, because you kind of start to concentrate on the business aspect of the music business. You start to understand why a lot of these acts, especially the big acts, go through such turmoil, you know, with management and accountings and, you know, accountants and, you know, taxes and, you know, and the record label, you know, we you know, we look at artists as being like, you know, the big artists being like bigger than life. But when you really break it down, you know, if they don't have the industry to support them and have that machine behind them, then they are pretty much nothing without them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I learned a lot about those aspects about the business being, you know, and learning about the music business and rubbing shoulders with people in the music industry. You know.
Have you had to ever, I'm not looking for names or anything, but have there been people you've met that are like so appalling because of their business ethics that it, like, you come home, you need a shower or something like that?
Oh, it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the music business changes. The laws in the music business changes every day.
Yeah.
That exhausts you enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let alone that, you know, the problem is with I think it's not only in music business, but it's business period, is that if you just get one or two people that are up high in the record label that are the decision makers and they're good friends of yours, it's going to be easier for you to push your products or your, you know, pitch, you know, artists or you know, projects through the record label. But once they either retire or get fired or leave, then you're back at square A.
Yeah, you're like a rookie.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't make it. You know what I mean? Because they'll bring in the next person, and he already got people.
Right.
That he's bringing with him, and you're out. Then you have to go and find either you follow that guy to the next label or the woman, or you have to start from, you know, square A.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
So it's always a lot. Yeah, it's always a lot of pressure. So
I had a question here. It says your favorite food is apple cider vinegar.
Favorite food is no.
Oh.
No. Apple cider vinegar is what I take as far as cleaning my system out.
now the dime just dropped, right? You remember that conversation? You remember that now, right? I told you I'd sneak that in there. Tell me, what's the happiest moment or happiest time of your life?
Well, there's the big ones. The big ones is definitely when I wrote Don't Lose Magic for Shawn Christopher. I was in a grocery store shopping at the time, and I was married at that time, and I was just, you know, doing my day-to-day shopping for the wife. You know, I get a call from her, and she said, you need to call Shawn and Mike in New York. I said, what's wrong? What happened? She said, you better call him. He said, your record just went #1 over Michael Jackson's Black and White.
Wow.
I said, okay, let me call. And they're celebrating with people from Arista in New York. And they said, yeah, Billy, congratulations. Your record, the record you wrote, went #1 on Billboard charts. And I was stung. And I couldn't really like just scream and holler and, you know, in the store. So I had to get in my car and make sure with nobody around. And that's when I just burst out and screamed. You know, that was huge for me because again, it's kind of like, even when you're a writer, you still go up against other writers. So when you know, and you kind of like around some of the same people that kind of down you.
Yeah. You know, man, it's a weird thing with success. Other people are generally not happy for your success. I don't know why.
Oh man.
I hate to say this and sound negative.
No, say it, please. Thank you.
It's like, you know, I don't know. but very few people are like genuinely, you know, you may have a few friends that are like, man, I know what this guy went
I think it's
through.
very hard. I mean, you know, the struggle in the music business is that we're all trying to get to the same place. The problem is that if it's somebody you know and you're close to, and all of a sudden, you know, they're number one on the charts all over the world, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's envy. Yeah, there's jealousy. But the other side of it too is that they realize that, hey, you know, it's all about being in the right place in the right time. And then that's how I got my big deal with MCA, you know, because of having the #1 record on Shawn Christopher. And
but that, you know, sorry, I just want to say look, you wrote songs for years with RAMSEY Lewis, and since you were a little kid and you had that publishing deal.
That's right.
You've been playing in shitty clubs and then nicer clubs, traveling, no sleep, blah, blah, blah.
That's right.
Nobody sees that.
No.
They just see, oh man, this guy just came out of nowhere. This Bill Dickens guy, who's this? He wrote in They don't know you changed careers. You took a risk. You put the bass down. They don't know the effort the 10,000 hours and more that you put in to become proficient at your level on the instrument.
That's right. That's right. That's why it's like, you know, for me, it's, you know, now that I've been playing 60 years, it's kind of, you know, bittersweet for me because I survived. Yeah. You know what I mean? There was those low points where I didn't think I was going to make it because of all the stress of the business and my peers. And, you know, it was very hard, but I'm still here and things are going well.
That should be the name of your autobiography. I'm still here and things are going well. That was good.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have any hobbies outside of music or
fishing?
Oh, that's right. You're a bass fisher. You fish for bass.
Yeah, I fish for but I fish for everything. You know, the thing about it is that I don't have a technique. I just take 3-4 fishing poles out, and then I just put the bait on them, and then I just cast the line out at different places, and I just put it in my chair and just sit. I wait.
Man, fishing is so relaxing. I love fishing.
It's very peaceful, but it can be very intense depending on where you're fishing. If I fish like on a dam, I'll fish over the dam, so I piss off the other fishermen that are at the bottom of the dam. You know that?
Billy, you're always pissing people off, man. We got a theme here. That's cool. Fishing. What else? Anything else?
I don't know. I mean, I'm so kind of drowned in music, man. I mean, you know, like even like I've taken on over recent years MD for like I've been the music director for Michael Henderson when he comes into Chicago. I just taken on the responsibility, you know, being the music director for Leo Nocentelli. Then my own career is, you know, as a recording artist, you know, with Rope-A-Dope, and it's hard to find hobbies. Yeah. You know, I think, you know, I did at one point was going to the movie theaters and watching different movies. That was very odd for me because I'm not so much about that kind of movie goer, you know. And I think I went to the movies just recently and saw the Aretha Franklin.
Oh, you know, how is it? Good?
Yeah. You know,
that's not
I think Jennifer Hudson did an incredible job.
Yeah.
It's
hard to play Aretha Franklin, man.
You know, you just can't. Yeah, certain people you just can't extract certain things out of their life because it's Aretha Franklin went through some heavy stuff, man. Yeah. Oh my gosh, heavy. I mean, I think she had her first kid when she was like 11, 12 years old.
Wow, that is heavy.
And she was raped.
Oh my God, I didn't know
and from what it looked like, it was at one of her fathers, whose father was a minister, at one of his parties. Man, you know,
that is.
You know what I mean? So you know,
too much, man.
Yeah, that's man. Horrible. And the business that she went through. I mean, she went through stuff that makes somebody commit suicide, man. And she made it, man. She made it.
Wow.
You know? Yeah. So I mean, overall, that's my first time being just by myself. And, with COVID and everything, it was really weird. It was like me and two other girls in the whole theater, and that was it.
That is weird, man.
It's real weird.
It's like very like science fiction, like you're watching a movie from the future, in the future or something like that.
That's what, yeah. And it was very weird, but it was very relaxing and peaceful. But yeah, my whole take on that is just that it's much more to Aretha Franklin, and I understand why they had to do what they had to do.
Yeah.
And for me, it was great because I had wrote for Aretha Franklin, and
on her
comeback album,
comeback record,
Rose,
right?
Yeah, Rose is Still a Rose, and we were on the B side of that single, Rose is Still a Rose, which went gold, and it hit the top 5, and then we had the song that was on the B side, which I wrote, in case you forgot, was the 3rd single on the record, and Clyde Davis placed the song himself. He loved it that much because that song was supposed to have been in Waiting to Exhale, the movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
And Babyface bumped it off. He liked it. And I years later, I think about it. I'm like, that's a great compliment coming from Babyface. He liked my song. And, then Clyde refused to let the song go because he loved it, but he needed Babyface to write the soundtrack for Waiting to Exhale. So Clyde himself placed that song on Aretha Franklin's "The Rose is Still a Rose."
Right on, man.
Two great experiences with Clyde, with Shawn Christopher. Of course, he was a part of, very instrumental in that. And then Aretha Franklin's comeback album, which was her biggest comeback album in years.
Man, do you have any heroes? Who's your hero? Like somebody you know, if you have one.
What? I tell you what, my heroes are kind of like some people that you probably may not know, and others you would know. I think one person that I look up to, because he reminds me a lot of myself, is Mike Tyson. And I got a chance to spend a day with him and in Vegas. And we were performing for the Lou Ross Telethon, and he was there, and other major artists were there. And so I got a chance. It was definitely one of those things. It was something set up by God, because there was no security. There was nobody around but me and Mike. And we're talking, and he'd never seen me before. I knew who he was, but he'd never seen me before. I just told him I was performing here with RAMSEY Lewis. And what's funny enough, RAMSEY performed the single that I wrote, and the song was called Bernice, on that show. So I had a chance to hang out with Mike, and I think we had a lot of ways that was this so similar, that whole urban thing, and how we came up through hard times, and family problems and stuff like that. And I always looked up to Mike as a hero to me, because he had to go up against all the odds. And of course, dealing with the not being super educated, with the, and just millions and millions of dollars thrown on him, and he hit rock bottom, and he was able to recreate himself.
It's funny you mentioned him. Yesterday, I was watching him on something, and I said, I'd love to have a conversation with that guy, because the transformation he made, it's, I don't even know how the hell he did it.
It's mind-boggling.
I mean, he went, you sit and you listen to him, and you say, this is a really intelligent guy, well read. And then you go and you look, how did that even happen? Like, you don't grow intelligence. That means he must have always been intelligent, but for some reason it was either not encouraged or so beaten out of him, or his self-esteem was so damaged.
Absolutely. At the end of his career, he lost everything. He lost his huge mansion and cars, you know, he just started pointing the finger at certain people, even the promoter, you know, everybody.
Oh, Don King, come on, man.
Yeah. So, you know, it was like he hit rock bottom for a while there, and he was able to reinvent himself. And I was like watching him kind of go through the process, you know, when I see him on YouTube or what have you. And he was able to do it. He was able to dig himself out of the hole. And, you know, that's an inspiration for me, because that's kind of the way it is, you know, was for me too.
Yeah.
You know,
I think he's got one of the most amazing transformation stories of anybody.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, I look up to him, and, you know, a lot of people that were my heroes are no longer here, you know, a lot of the jazz greats that I've, you know, either worked on shows with or worked with them personally. Another guy I look up to as a hero is Johnny Mathis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
talented guy.
Spent a lot of time with Johnny in one situation where I was doing a sound check with RAMSEY, and we were doing a show with Johnny, opening up for Johnny. So during sound check, I'm sitting on, you know, on stage playing Misty, you know, on my bass. I'm playing all the chords and melody and all that. And all of a sudden I hear Johnny's voice behind me. I'm like, is Johnny singing? So I just kept on playing, and I turned around, and it was a construction worker with big glasses, like sunglasses on. And I'm like, man, you sound just like Johnny. He took his glasses off, and it was him.
It was Johnny Mathis.
Yeah,
wow.
he says he has tons of disguises to get through the airport, so people don't recognize him.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, I would love for you to come out and why don't you come out and, you know, have lunch with us, you know, love to talk to you. I was just startled, you know, but he told me a lot of things about business, and I don't know why he told me those things, but he told me a lot of things that stuck with me till this very day.
That's awesome, man. That is very cool. Two cool stories there.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tyson's awesome.
Yeah.
Biggest change, Bill, in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that change has been intentional and how much is just a natural part of aging?
Well, let's take it more recent. I mean, I think that one of the things that I learned a big lesson from is trusting people. Trusting people that you feel that are 100% in your corner, and out of thin air, they change on you at a drop of a dime, and you don't even know who they are anymore. And also the whole aspect of helping people. You don't know if they're there for the help, or to take from you what you have and what you work for all these years, as far as endorsements and far as your career and that sort of thing. I learned a big lesson from that I have to be more protective and guard my heart a lot more with those kind of situations, because you're going to always, as you travel, you're going to always meet people that's going to want a handout. You know, you don't know how far to take that handout. I'm one of these kind of people that, you know, I just have a big heart, and I want to follow through, and I want things to work out, you know, for people or person that I'm helping. So, but you just never know how people will end up in the end. You know, if you feel like you put all the time you could into them, and then they just, you know, turn around and they become something else. You know, now I don't know what that's from. You know, I think that maybe, again, it's just my heart is just too big for my own good sometimes, you know.
So how are you? So how do you handle it? Like, so do you have like a filter system that you develop now, or like how do you?
I've developed things over the course of some months that it's kind of like you get a big gash, or get big cut, and you know it has to heal and becomes a big scar, and then scar eventually has to go away, you know, or it'll be there a part of your body or your heart or whatever for years. So the filter system is basically that it's an ongoing process for me. I'm learning that, and that's I think that's things that you learn throughout life to deal with, that certain things you hope that happen for you will work out for you, and they don't, and all of a sudden you just kind of like in limbo, and you just you have to you make those choices. You either go one way or the other. You know what I mean? And if you go the right direction, it's going to hurt, no matter what you do. But you have to learn, well, okay, I know I pray. I am a religious person, but I also know that I am a person that, does not like to be, messed with or sort of misguided, that kind of thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, then too, you don't want to get to the stage where your filtering system is, okay, my filtering system is nobody comes in, because then it works, but it's a lonely existence. So
it's very lonely. It could be very lonely. I mean, but it's like, then again, the thing that kind of keeps you balanced is you look at others that have people that are around them that's causing them problems, and you're just kind of you're the outsider. You know what I mean? So you could kind of take a deep breath and say, whew, that's not me. So yeah, I mean, the thing about it being the loneliness is actually kind of cool for me right now, because I'm able to really go in myself and really learn about myself. I've never really had a chance to do that, going from being a married person, a father, and and then going into another relationship, and now I'm on my own. And so now I'm able to go into my heart and really, find out those things that I was probably neglecting and never had time to really address,
And I'm happy that you're doing that. Mm-hmm. You're finding a silver lining in the cloud here, man.
Mm-hmm. And it's a strange time. I mean, strange. I don't think I don't think it's a good time to go and find another relationship with COVID going on.
Who the hell knows?
And, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you if you're in a relationship, this is the best time to hold on to it. I mean, I definitely can write a book on just this. It's this part of my life, like
Yeah, imagine that, man, hanging on to a relationship because of COVID. God, people hang on to relationships for lots of reasons, man.
But nothing this devastating, you're you're seeing so many people, and you're seeing other people that are catching this, and then a lot of people are not surviving it. And one of my dearest friends, who I just called before I called you, has got COVID, and I grew up with him. His name is Richard Reed, and he's in the hospital right now.
Wow.
And he got his shots, but he still caught it. He got real sick. He's in the hospital right now. So, I told him I'll call him every, a few minutes to check up on him. And I missed yesterday calling him, and I was like, oh, I better call him today. So I just want to make sure he's okay.
Yeah.
So
Richard Reed is okay, man. God, that's horrible to hear that he's in the hospital.
I know.
We're about to wrap up, but I just want you to talk about, if you can. First of all, I want to say thank you very much. You're a lovely guy.
Thank you. No, the pleasure is all mine. I thank you.
Appreciate
you for taking the time.
Likewise, man.
Yeah.
Tell me about I'm Your Keeper.
The movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm Your Keeper. That movie is about the Chicago violence from a preacher's perspective. My pastor, Daryl D. Griffin, which I want to send a shout out to him and everyone at my church, Oakdale Covenant Church, is the star of the show, along with Grammy Award winner Maui Music, and Jonathan McReynolds, who also won a Grammy with Maui Music, is in the movie, and he makes a cameo appearance. So the thing about it for me, how I got in that movie was because the music director Joe Capity produced my music video, "Stop the Violence," for Rope-A-Dope.
Okay.
And he did such a phenomenal job And he told me, later on, he said, I love your mannerisms. You know, I want you to, you know, make a cameo, sort of like a cameo appearance in the movie. I said, oh, okay, that'd be fine. I don't have to say anything, right? So long story short, I was talking with them about the movie and you know, some things about, you know, the direction and that kind of thing. I said, hey man, listen, one of my dear friends, Ronnie Garrett, does, you know, a lot of the music for Tyler Perry's movies, and you know, he's a music director for Tyler Perry's, you know, plays and that sort of thing. So, you know, I said, let's give him a call. I want to put you two on the phone, let you have a talk. So he talked with Ronnie about the movie and the direction. Ronnie gave him some ideas about, you know, how to basically take the movie and go and not make it totally church, you know, but make it so that it attracts both, you know,
yeah, you need to have
non-believers, you know, and believers, that sort of thing.
People are interested for the story, right, not just the religious.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So Joe went back and I guess he rewrote the script, right? So he gives me the script. He says, I want you to read this. I didn't read it for 3 months. I didn't touch it. He kept bugging me. It's like, did you read the script yet? I said, no. And so one day he said, man, you got to read the script, man. You got to read the script. So I'm like wondering myself, why does he want me to read the script? So I started to read the script, and from almost the beginning of the movie, there's a speaking role of that it was, you know, that I had in there. I said, I don't act, you know what I mean? Not as far as verbally. And then I kept reading it, and I'm like, it's just all these different scenes I'm speaking in, all these, and I'm like, I said, John.
And you're playing yourself, I got to tell people.
I'm playing myself.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm playing myself. And that's hard to do. You know, when you got cameras on you, it's like, you forget who you are. You know?
Yeah.
That's why you got to go to acting school. But he said, you don't have to go to acting school because you act just like, just be yourself. That's what I want. So he had me throughout the movie with a speaking role. And then I had parts of the movie where I was playing like creative improv bass, you know, solos. There was one scene where, I want to say 30, 40 preachers in a row and with a big choir. And then I'm playing solo by myself and they're screaming and hollering. And
that's cool.
It's, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm the only guy in history that's ever done this.
Yeah.
In, you know, film history that's ever done something like this. So
yeah.
on a 7-string bass. Long story short, you know, Maui Music and Jonathan Bruns both won Grammys. We were waiting for that, so that would help the leverage on the movie. So that all came to pass. They won their Grammys making a song basically in Jonathan McReynolds' bedroom or something like that. No record label, that's how they made it. And they submitted it and it went through and they won. So
when is the movie coming out, or is unknown? I
don't know. I mean, you know, right now I did some music for it just to try to get it back up and running. And then, you know, I see the music director. He works at our church. He deals with all the cameras and stuff at our church. So, you know, whenever I talk to him, he says, I'm trying to get to it. I'm just over my head busy, you know. But they got the leverage they need. I don't know what the date is at this point, because they still have to, you know, do all the music for it. You know, I did some music.
Oh yeah, that comes last. Yeah,
that comes last. So it's he's still basically into editing a lot of stuff. But I just created some music for it just to you know, to kind of get the whole ball up and running again.
Well, that's cool, man. So is there like an acting career in Bill Dickens' future?
I think, yeah. I mean, you know, it would have to be something that, you know, it's like I would have to luck up on some other things, I guess. You know, you know, I'm kind of like right at this point in my life, I'm like, you know, do I make another record, you know, an album, you know, because that took the life out of me.
Talk about that. Your record, Bill's record, is called The Truth, THA, Truth. His playing is I mean, it's just off the charts. You know, you've never heard anybody play like this. But talk about the truth, man.
I tell you, that took a long time to make. One of the first albums I've ever done where it was like you know, they brought a real tape in. It was like gigantic. It was almost as big as the machine, you know. And the producer, the co-producer, Dave Freeman, had this concept. It was like, okay, we're gonna go to Steve Albini's studio, you know, who's like the Quincy Jones of grunge music.
Yeah,
you know,
and he's in Chicago, right?
Yes, he's in Chicago. That's right.
Okay.
And so he worked on it along with Dave and others. And so, you know, Steve has the biggest mic selection, I think, in Chicago, if not Illinois.
Right.
You know, whole buildings, like 3, 4, 5 stories of microphones, you know. And so he also had these reels. Maybe Dave ordered them, I don't know, but they were the biggest reels I've ever seen in my life. So all the original compositions on that album were just created by jamming.
Very cool. So like everything was on the fly pretty much.
Yeah, and then I'd spent 2 years editing all that stuff.
Wow, that's a lot of work, man.
That's a lot of work. So it really just took the air out of me. I mean, I got to a point that was one of those moments where I was like, I can't do this no more, you know. And so once the record was finished, I was just going to put it out there and just say, okay, that's it. That's the end of that. But I met a guy named Cody Wright, who's another phenomenal bass player, and he introduced me to Louis Marks at Rope-A-Dope. And long story short, though, one of the final things that we actually, and I mentioned this, that we put on the record was a duet with Mike Gordon, myself, Mike from Van Fish.
Fish, yeah.
So I submitted the record to Louis, and I was my impression was like, okay, here comes another turn down. I've had a lot of turn down, especially when I tried to sing. And I had like every, you know, label turn me down. They said, you sound great, but not good enough, you know? So I gave that up, you know, for a while. And so I
never thought anything about your voice. It sounded perfect for what are you doing? Like, you're not singing opera here, man.
No, I'm just singing, man. So, you know, so I get a message back from Louis saying, this is great. This is what our fans expect from us. We love this project. And I'm just like, I must be dreaming.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, we got to talking and he said, yeah, we would love to put this out. I'm going to send you a contract. And I'm like, what? He said, I'm sending you a contract. And when I got that contract, he went through it and I was trying to sign, you know, the contract so I could send it back. My hand was shaking like this.
As much experience as you have.
I couldn't write, but it's like, you know, you know, you're in your 50s and you're like, I'm actually getting ready to sign a contract.
Yeah, a record contract
for myself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was one heck of an experience. The album is kind of all over the place, which is great because it shows my production skills, but as well it shows how diverse I am. You know, and also, you know, there's a lot of hip hop that comes from me in that record as well. That's why it's called THA.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. From that's hip hop language. What can I say? I mean, it was so well received. You know, the record was very well received, and people have been asking me, when you gonna put out the next record? I said, I got 30 songs in the can right now. I have 2 of them that I'm singing. It has nothing to do with jazz or fusion or, you know, it's just pop stuff. And I'm like, I want to try this. And I want to hear the good and bad, you know. I don't care. I want to get this out of my system, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want to make this second record, and I want to be able to display more of the writing side of me, and they'll still be playing. But I think the problem is that when you don't come from something, if you don't have a support system of management, road management, booking agency, it's hard to push yourself out there.
It's another business. Yeah.
It's a whole altogether. That's what I'm saying. You have to learn that. That has nothing to do with your playing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's like becoming a roofer. Now you're an accountant or something like that.
Right.
It's a different business, man. It's not the same thing. Yeah, I get it.
Right. Marcus Miller said it. He said it just recently. He said, there are no bass players out here doing these major shows. Yeah. It's 99% the other way. It's no bass players out here. It's like, he's part of the 1%. Victor's part of the 1%. Stanley, Richard Bono, you know, they're the part of the 1%, you know, and there's all the rest of us that trying to figure out how do we get through that door. My whole thing is just being association with people, you know, and you know, they give me a chance to do my stuff on my show where they don't really have a big choice anyway, because I'm a recording artist. So well, pat yourself on the back, man. Another job well done. There you go. That's right.
Man, I can't thank you enough for everything. I really appreciate your time. Where do you want people to find you, like online? What do you
Of course, you can go to billthebuddhadickens.com. You can go to my fan page on Facebook, my Bandcamp, also Instagram, Twitter. So far, that's all I know for right now.
And if you're interested in working with Bill and having him play some tracks on your material, email him at BillDickens, Dickens 58 @gmail.com. Obviously include some links for your music and, you know, what about his playing are you looking for, and, you know, give him some frame of reference so he could get back to you and let you know if it's a fit or not, or with suggestions or not. So anything else that I didn't promote that you want to promote?
Well, I mean, I wish we had said something about Jaco, because I think, you know, that maybe in the future we'll talk about that. But you know, what else is there? Well, right now I'm doing the show at I think it's the Funky Uncle in New Orleans. Yeah, on the 8th with Leo Nocentelli and a bunch of other stars. Big Sam from Big Sam's Funky Nation. I forget Donald's last name. Some great saxophone player that's well known as a recording artist, and there's going to be a lot of stars there.
That's not Donnie McCaslin, is it?
No. Donald's last name. I have to look here, and I can find it pretty quickly.
I know a badass drummer named Donald.
Oh yeah,
Donald Barrett.
Oh no, Donald. We didn't get a chance to talk about it. He's gonna kill me, man. Oh my God, man. We left him out. Donald, I'm sorry, man.
He's a great young man.
Oh my God, man.
I like that kid, man.
Man, Donald is a phenomenal cat and love him like a son, man. Yeah, Donald Harrison.
Okay.
Great horn player, man. But yeah, you know, I think that's probably one of the big things that I have to thank Donald Baird. Donald was was my protege, of course. You know, that was another God sent that I was able to get him on a gig, you know, in LA before he even got there.
Yeah.
You know, how many people get that kind of luck, you know what I mean? And he's out on tour, you know, and I have to thank my friend Brian Bush, who was playing with my friend, I'm so bad with names, Johnny Britt.
You're not bad with names at all, man. I mean, I've been incredibly impressed at your memory, to be honest.
Oh God, for old man, I can't remember all this stuff. Impromptu was the name of the band,
right?
And they were on Mo Jazz.
Yeah,
they were on Mo Jazz, and so Brian called me and asked if I knew of a drummer, and Brian was already living in LA. Of course, there's a sea of drummers out there, but I said, hey, I got a monster that's coming right out there, and I'm giving you his number right now. Call him right now. You know, because Donald was like, Bill, what did you do, man? What did you do? I said, hey, man, that's God working, man. He's like, you know, you out on tour, man. You ain't even got there yet.
I know. I think he said he was sitting in front of the the bar where Impromptu was going to play randomly or something like that, and he gets to
I didn't
call,
know
if
the
I remember
story
that.
behind. All I
Yeah.
know is I just made the I just kind of helped, in getting him established. I mean, I don't know anybody that does anything like that for, because that's because everything is like in LA, everybody's kind of like holding on to what they have, and you have all these cliques, and you don't find musicians that would help bring a new musician in town.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I was one of the people that could help Donald, and look where Donald is now.
Yeah, he's doing great.
So proud of him, and I hope he invites me down to when he gets his Grammy, because when I get mine, I'm definitely inviting him down.
That's cool, man. Yeah, he'll be there, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill, thank you very much for everything. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
sir.
Hang on a second. We'll wrap up. Everybody, please check out Bill the Buddha Dickens online. Again, it's Dicken. You can't miss him. Just enter Bill Dickens bass, and a new world that you've never imagined will open up to you. And
may I say something real quick?
Yeah, of course.
I want to mention one of my friends, and he's going to kill me, Willie Moss, who's one of my dearest and best friends, who was the sergeant for the Boston Feds, and he's also a phenomenal 7-string bass player, and he happened to play my signature bass.
There you go.
That's it. I'm done.
Right on. Everybody,
okay.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. Thanks very much to Bill Dickens. Everybody check out Bill online and check out his record, The Truth. And let's hope, fingers crossed, I'm Your Keeper, the movie comes out. You kind of look like a little bit like Denzel with that hat and that, the raincoat on.
Oh man, yeah.
You're on your way, man. You get the
I'm trying, man.
The whole thing going. And most important, man, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice. Go play your guitar or your 7-string bass and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Bill, thank you for everything, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, buddy.